Chapter 352. On the west side of the Great Xia, where the flames of war had passed, there were ruins everywhere. The years of war had caused the prosperity of the past to disappear. In the wilderness, a young man in white with a broken sword on his back silently walked forward. He entered the world to cultivate and walk step by step. The result of the war was shocking. Even swordsmen who were usually calm were affected by this scene and couldn't bear to see it. It was hard to say whether the change in the state of mind was a good or bad thing. The path of swordsmanship required a calm mind. However, there was a knowing destiny state cultivator who had never been able to calm down and comprehend swordsmanship. Yet, he had reached his current height through continuous battles. There were thousands of paths on the path of the sword. Mu Bai and the Yin Prince had both reached a level that others couldn't compare to. If the younger generation wanted to walk the same path, they were destined to never surpass the two of them. Just at this moment, a swordsman in purple and white also walked over silently. The house sword on his back had been in its sheath for a long time. After entering the three disasters, he rarely appeared and kept a low profile. In the past, the number one swordsman of the four extreme realms was trapped by the master of the four extreme realms. He had betrayed his own path and couldn't advance anymore. Now the knot in his heart had been untied, and he had entered the three disasters. However, he once again didn't know where to go. The two people who passed each other didn't say anything. The broken sword and the house sword trembled slightly, resonating with each other due to the aura of the swords. The two didn't turn back and walked away in search of their own paths. Within the stone room of the Knowing Destiny Marquis Manor, the Sua Luo sword was suppressing the demonic cultivator. It shone with a golden light and continuously chased away the demonic qi. However, the demonic qi was endless and couldn't bring back the demonic emperor. Ning Chen stood in front of the stone chamber in silence. From noon to sunset he didn't say a word. Within the manor, no one dared to disturb him. Even the usually heartless Ning, she was silent at this moment. The path to Knowing Destiny state was difficult to walk. In the past, he had a good friend who could walk side by side with him. Now there was only one person left. The two people separated by the stone door looked at each other. One was as cold as the abyss, and the other was as calm as the autumn water. However, under the abyss and the autumn water, who could see the blood and tears? Within the manor, a red-clothed guard from the Tylee division had been waiting for a long time. Seeing the sun set, a trace of anxiousness flashed across his face. What is it? Ning Chen withdrew his gaze from the stone room and glanced at the figure not far away. Reporting to the Marquis, there's been a change in the battle situation. Suddenly, over at the rainbow saber turned and stabbed into the battle between the three strongest. The sudden change shocked everyone. The battle situation from the last to push back Bodhi. It made Ning Chen feel as if the enemy world had arrived. After reading it, there was no one around. This minion country was really disgusting. Blades and swords could be heard. I'll make a drone there and knew that he had fallen into a trap. He didn't even have time to say anything before he was drowned in blood. Flew past. Are you satisfied with his destiny to join the battle? Ning Chen looked at the things described in the letter. An hour couldn't be considered the cold look in his eyes. This moment had become the boundary monster comparable to the three disasters. If he could break through, he would escape with his life. However, he was not surprised. He would return to the primordial species like Tajao activated his blood origin and thousands of blood tribulations. It was now unacceptable for an bloodlight surged in heaven and black suffering was going out for a bit. Blood calamity's expression hardened as he stood in front of his time. Exploded out. This shocking gas caused by Zhang's breath spreading in all directions. Ning Chen looking back at the woman who had been standing wounds caused by the sabers coughed up and she nodded and softly agreed. The Rome race's special cultivation technique was Zhang Mahadi and shattered the prison carriage with a single palm. He then put it on his back, attacked from all sides. In the backyard of the region was the border between the Grand Xia and the Bang country. The war had been going on for who knows how many years. The Minion country was abandoned prison. Such a line if it weren't for their remote location, making it easy to confront and difficult to attack. Another there would be no
throughout
such
the world.
annoying 5 days after the
When
news
did it
spread.
become
So
Marquis in charge of guarding this area?
had already led his troops
His sword momentum changed.
However,
He changed his
this
target
time
and attacked
was
determined to
dispelling
anti
Minion's
rumors
country.
had yet to
Hell,
appear.
the stronger
the
you
various
are,
actions
the more you
of the
value
Dong
your
residents
seemed
you have to
weak and
sound
powerless
some
at
life
this
saving
moment.
techniques.
As
A
if they
huge
were trying to
monster
hide
smiling.
some heads rumbled
Did I
in
come
the
too
third
late?
line palace
Just
one
at
of
the
the
heads
heads
was
was
a
a
rare
young
saber
woman
dressed in red.
red-haired
Listening
dancing
to the
in
wind
her hand
dazzling
below.
She
She
controlled
what
the
about the
city
Wayang
forward.
Palace?
Just in time.
Behind
Had there
the
been any
movement,
movement?
the black
As
was
by
one
Jiang
Minyan
joined
no,
the battle.
quickly
The
closed
Empress
in.
Dowager
The
battle
battle
had
has
at least
left
100,000 of them.
Two sabers
and their
figured
wild
sword
ambitions
shots
were
were
evident.
evident.
By Jiang
Kong
sneers stood on top of the city
was
wall.
too much.
His
And
fist
the
relationship
relationship
that
they
they
had
pushed Fan
palace
Zhang's
after
bottom
several
line.
months,
As far as
the
he
cold
could
and
not
gloomy
expression
although
on
an
his
hour
the more
seemed
they tried to
lightened.
hide it,
It was
and he
harder
more
than
than
admitting
like
that
the
the
general
Marquis
than the ruthless
was
highly
doomed
division
this
had.
time.
Been abandoned by your trusted ally.
The most helpless
How do
choice
you feel
to
to
retreat
between
the
the
Grand
Grand
Xian
Xian
as his
sword
sword
rushed
rushed
past
his heart
and the barbarian
only now
dynasty
did
come
you
understand
understand
that
that
the
the
Marquis
Marquis
was
was
not
not
only
going
to
to
appear
child
glory,
laughable,
but also a
the former
responsibility
headquarters
he had
of
for
four
extreme
extreme
armies.
armies.
The Grand
Xian
Xian
soldiers
do you
looked
think
at
it's
the
necessary
monstrosity
for
for
someone
someone
who's about to
they
die?
hadn't had time
Although
to
they
rebuild
were
and
calmly.
How
They
about
could
it?
underestimate
Join
Rong
hands
order
with
and
me.
retreat.
Compared to
Kong
that
knew
treacherous
during his
Jiang.
heavy
Do you
injury.
understand now?
He pushed aside the
As he
sabers
spoke,
and
a
swords in
plainclothes
front of him.
figure
Why?
appeared
You
below
want
the
Rong
city
Lu
wall.
turned his
Wishful
head
thinking,
and narrowed
seeing
his
the
eyes.
person
After
who
the
came to
sabers
betray
and Kong
you
was
and
shot
so
even
decisively,
sharper, but he quickly
that was
recovered.
never
Strike
had
had
truly
the battle of the
surprised him.
Rome race.
Thank you,
had
Marquis.
entered its most
By
critical
Jiang, I'll
moment.
teach you one last
The
thing.
Azure Sparrow
And the person
and
over
the
the
Mahogany
Mahogany
exchanged
exchanged
glances.
and the
Azure Sparrow
Before
appeared
power
in
and
his
benefits.
hands.
Looking
Our
at the
past
army in
alliance
front of
isn't
him,
worth
he coldly
mentioning.
said, "Between us,
In this world,
there's no conflict
whoever
of
has
interest.
the biggest fist
It's
has
the
the
best
right
choice.
to speak," said Wang
Don't
Fengchen
believe in
calmly.
bullshit benevolence
Rong Lu
and
carefully weighed the
righteousness.
pros and cons.
If you are benevolent,
the four
then
extreme
you are
realms
being
were
cruel
indeed a
to the
good
people
choice to
behind
join
you.
hands with.
The Azure
Unlike
Sparrow
by
let out a
Jiang,
long cry,
this person
and a
might have a
dazzling
large
rainbow
amount of
light
streaked
streaked
across
across
the
the
sky.
sky.
But
But
due
due
to his
pierced through the
cultivation
air,
base,
cutting
he
through
couldn't
thousands of
completely
majestic
intimidate
sword
him.
intent.
If they joined
The
hands,
eight-headed snake raised
even
its
if his
head to the
person
sky
betrayed
and
him in
roared,
the future,
shaking heaven
he was
and earth.
confident he could
On one of the
eliminate him.
snake's heads,
Seeing
the
Rong
red-robed
Lu waver,
woman's
Wang
eyes were
Fengchen
filled with
continued.
killing intent.
From what I
The
see,
sound of her flute
your
was
cultivation
bleak,
technique
disturbing
has
people's
extremely
minds.
high requirements.
The sword
for blood
intent
yuan.
swept past,
The phoenix
causing
perched
blood
mountain
to
of the
splatter
four
around the
extreme
snake.
realms.
However,
Has already been
to a
confirmed
monster
to
the
contain
size of a
two
small
phoenixes.
mountain,
If
he
you
was
help
only
me
able
unify
to
the four
endure
extreme
extendance.
realms,
The
I'll
woman took a
definitely
step,
find a way to help
dodging
you
the
trap
sword
those
light
two
that came
phoenixes
close
in the
to her.
future.
Her delicate
Rong
hands
Lu's eyes
formed
shone brightly,
seals,
and he
and
no
huge
longer
logs
hesitated.
fell from the sky.
Deal. He had never
Wang
seen
Fengchen
such a
smiled.
strange technique
Let's
before.
go.
With
Ning
that,
Chen
the
coldly
two of them
snorted.
flew toward
With the
Ascension
sweep of
Valley.
his sword,
Rong
the
Lu had
logs in
finally
front of
left
him
for the time
exploded,
being,
filling
at
the
same
sky with
time,
fragments.
within the eternal
If
night
you have
god
the guts
sect,
to come,
Chuli was
then there's
still
no need
unconscious.
for you to return.
By Jiang frowned,
Ning Shuang's
unable
sword
to find the
directly
reason.
stabbed into one
Without
of the
a
snake's
doubt,
heads.
The
The
Jiming
sword
Marquis
spun
had
through
done
the air,
something to
causing
Chuli's
blood
body.
to spurt out.
By Jiang walked
Roar.
over from the dark
With
abyss.
a pained roar,
Behind the
giant
open
snakes
coffin
had exploded.
The images of
The
gods
remaining
and
7
demons
heads
fell
danced
silent and lunged
He waited
towards the
for a
person
long
in
time,
front of it. But there was
its
no
bloody
response.
maw was terrifying
Since
to
there
the
was no
extreme.
response,
Being
by
controlled
Jiang
by the
sighed
flute,
and left first.
the 8-headed snake
Half a day
didn't know
later,
fear.
outside
Each of
the
its
eternal
heads
night
breathed
god
out
clouds and mist,
a black aura
making it
flew
hard
out
to
and headed
endure.
southeast.
Ning Chen
After
stepped
Bai
on the
Jiang
water.
left,
The
his
green
figure
red
was like
figure,
an illusion,
who had been waiting
His
for a
sword
long
moved
time
like a dragon.
followed. They
So
were very
fast
far
that it was
away
hard
and
to
were very
see with the
cautious.
naked eye.
In the
In the
southeast
eyes
of
of
the
the
great
great
martial
Xia,
artists,
outside Donghua
the
City,
City,
the
the
black
black were
aura
impenetrable.
Looking
However,
at the
at this
battlefield
moment,
after the battle
they were
between
as
the
fragile
great
as
Xia
paper.
and the Minyan
The
Kingdom,
sword light slashed
he drew
across
a strange
and blood
seal
fell
with
like
his
rain.
hands.
The
The
red
blood
blood
of
of
the
woman was
eight-headed
terrified.
snake flew up from
the
the
flute
dust.
sound changed a
Bai
few
Jiang
times,
used the blood
but
as
it
a
still
guide to
couldn't
find
change
the
the
source
final
of the
result.
ferocious beast.
She could only
The
watch as
eternal
the
night
guardian
beast
scripture was
beneath her
affected by the chaos
with
scroll.
loud bangs.
Originally,
Heads fell to
it
the
would have
ground
taken
one by
some
one.
time to find
Blood
the hiding
dyed the
area
place
around
of
the
these
ferocious
beasts.
The soldiers of
He didn't
Minyan
expect
country,
the Minyan
who were
kingdom
slightly
to find
closer,
them
were
first.
affected and
The
fell to the
Hydra was
ground
the
in
most
fear.
cunning of all the
With the sword
ferocious
to the
beasts.
throat, the flute
It
broke.
separated its
The
life
red-robed
source
woman
from its
didn't
main
even have
body.
time to react.
Although its power was
Only
weakened,
the unwillingness
as
in
long
her
as
eyes
its
could
life
not be
source
hidden.
wasn't destroyed.
In front of the small
Even if
mountain
something
of snake
happened to its
corpses,
main body,
Ningchen
there was
glanced
still
at the
hope for
army
it
that
to
was
be revived.
retreating in fear.
Found it.
He didn't
The
care.
origin tracing technique
This
took
matter
effect.
didn't affect
Bai
the
Jiang
overall
looked
situation,
in the direction of
and
Minyan
he
country
needed to
in the
return as
distance
soon
and
as
sped
possible.
off. I'll leave the rest to you. The green sparrow returned to its
Chapter
sheath.
356.
Ningchen carried the
In the
mahogany
homeland
box
of Western
and left.
Buddhism,
Farewell,
the moon
Marquis.
shone brightly.
On the city
Wave
wall,
after wave of
the great
pursuits
Xia
had been
soldiers
going on
recovered
for
from
several
their
days
shock
and bowed
Many
respectfully.
Buddhist cultivators
Opened the city
Owl
gate
clan,
chase.
The
Looking
Yan
at the
clan,
retreating
the
army,
Zhao clan,
Kong
and
Yu's
even
eyes
the Rong
flashed
clan
coldly
surrounded
and
them
ordered.
again.
Yes,
Joining forces
all the generals
to fight against the
ordered.
cultivators
The anger
from the
that had
alien
been
realm.
suppressed for
Hand
several
over the
days
scroll of
exploded in an
nothingness,
instant.
and I'll spare your life.
They led the army
A
out of
red
the
robed
city
Buddha
and chased
walked out
after
from
the
among the
defeated
Buddhist
army.
cultivators.
In the imperial
He
city
looked
of
coldly
Wuxia,
at the green-robed
a swordsman
figure in the
purple
middle
and white
said
robes
coldly,
unknowingly walked
"Why are
over.
you still talking
Looking
to
at
him?
the Marquis mansion,
Let's kill him first."
He hesitated for
A
a moment
cold-looking
before
young
walking
man
up.
from the Owl clan
This one
walked
is
out
Xian
and said,
Tian. Prince
requesting
Yan
an
ignored
audience
him.
with the
He
Marquis.
looked at the girl behind him
Xian
and asked
Tian
calmly.
looked at the guard in
"A
front
man,
of
are
him
you afraid?"
and calmly said,
"No." Looking at
A
the
man
purple
shook her
and
head.
white figure with
Then
the sword in
she
front
looked
of
at the
him.
red-robed Buddha
The
in
guard was
front of her
slightly
and
shocked.
whispered unhappily,
He politely asked
"Bald
for a
donkey,"
moment, and immediately walked
Prince
into the
Yan
mansion.
chuckled.
The
He waved
Marquis
his
said
hand,
that if you meet
and
a
the sword
person who
rack
can't
flew in
feel
front
any
of him.
martial artist's
He held the
aura,
green and red
but still
swords
make
with
you
both
subconsciously
hands and
feel
pulled them
fear.
out.
Then
He
this
replied,
person is likely
"Don't
to be
learn
a
bad things
disaster
from that guy."
powerhouse.
Everyone
A few
present
days ago,
was at least
there was
fourth
the eternal
tribulation
night
Khanate
hierarch
cultivator.
Today there was
How
an
could they not
unfamiliar
hear the
swordsman.
curse?
When
Murderous
did three
intent
disaster
flashed in the
powerhouses
red-robed
become
Buddha's
so
eyes.
worthless?
He
When
swung
the
his
old
Buddhist
housekeeper
commandment
heard the
blade,
report,
bypassing
he hurried
Prince
to the
Yan,
backyard
and
to
rushing
report
towards
that the
a man
Marquis
clang.
wasn't here.
The sound of
This
swords
person
and
wouldn't be
sabers
here to
colliding
cause
rang
trouble,
out.
right?
The green sword
Wuxia
blocked
came out
the
of the
Buddhist
backyard
commandment
and
blade
gracefully
and
invited
changed
Xian
its
Tian
momentum,
to the front hall
pushing
to
the
receive him.
red-robed Buddha away.
At this time,
If
outside
anyone
the
dares
mansion,
to touch her
a
again,
red-haired figure
I won't
walked
let
in.
them live.
The former
Prince
holy
Yan
son
said
of the
coldly.
Four Realms,
Arrogant.
the current
The
lord
young
of the
man
Holy
from the
Land,
Owl clan snorted
also
coldly.
came to the divine
His
land
figure
to
flashed like an
investigate
eagle,
the matter of
and
the
his
blood
3
moon.
fingers clawed
When
at
the
our
two
man
met
Prince
again,
Yan's
their
eyes finally
appearances
had
flashed
changed
with murderous intent.
hatred.
The
It
aura
couldn't
of
be
the two
said.
swords
Only
changed
regret
abruptly.
in his heart
His
that was
black hair
difficult
fell
to
apart
erase.
and danced in the
Holy
wind.
Son,
An
Xian
unprecedented
Tian
pressure
bowed,
spread out.
still calling him
The
Holy
legend
Son.
of the great
In
Xia
his
dynasty
heart,
showed
the
his
Lord of the
murderous
Holy
body
Land
for the
would
first
always
time.
be the domain lord.
He was no longer calm.
Kindness would not be
His
erased
killing intent
because of
overflowed.
anything.
The
Although
moment
the
he
domain
swung his
lord
sword,
did not do what
his
he
fingers
wanted,
flew and
he
blood
never
splattered.
regretted it.
A peak
Xian
fifth
Tian
tribulation cultivator
congratulations.
was killed in
Being
one move,
able to step into
shocking
the three
everyone
disaster
present.
realm meant
Kill that the former
red-robed
had
Buddha's
broken through the
expression
shackles in
darkened.
his heart.
He swung his
Xian
blade,
Tian
and the
was
unique
originally
aura
the
of
most
the three
talented
disasters
swordsman
rose,
of the four
cutting through the
extremes.
night.
Now that
The
he
Zhao
took the
clan,
step,
the
it
Yan
was
clan,
already many
and the
years
Rong
too
clan,
late.
the
Thank
three
you,
top
Holy
powerhouses,
Son.
worked
Xian
together
Tian
at the
calmly
same
said,
time. What are
Their
you here
palms
for?
opened the 9 heavens,
Chaotic wind dust
and their
asked,
halberds fell
to
to the
settle
yellow
the past,
springs. To give
the
the
rest
domain
of the
lord,
powerhouses,
and also
to
to
give
join
myself
forces
an
to
explanation.
kill the 2 people in
Xian
front of
Tian
them.
replied,
The Buddhist,
chaotic
the 3
wind
races,
nodded.
4 of
Not
the 3
saying
disasters
anything more.
and dozens of
Xian
Khanate realm
Tian had already
experts
made up
formed
his
an
mind,
extremely
so
powerful
he couldn't
lineup.
change it.
Their
He
auras
hoped
merged
that after
together
this battle,
and sealed
the
off the
past
entire
could be
area.
completely settled.
Qing Hong brandished her
The two
sword,
of them waited for
sending
over
out a
2
wave
hours.
of brilliant killing
Just
light.
as the sun was about
The 4
to set,
experts of the
their
3
eyes
disasters
flashed
at the same
immediately
time
felt a powerful
he had
pressure.
arrived. A plain-clothed figure appeared in
The
front of the
unstoppable
manor.
sword
He
light
was
was
carrying
like
a
the sickle
mahogany
of the Grim
box,
Reaper under
and
the
the smell
moonlight.
of blood still
There was
hadn't
only
dissipated
death.
from his body.
Broken soldiers
Marquis,
broke
there's
souls
a guest.
and blood splattered
Wuxia
everywhere.
stepped forward
The
to
legend
greet
of
him.
Grand
I
Xia
know.
showed his most
Thank you for
terrifying
your hard
side.
work.
His sword
Ning
was
Chen nodded.
merciless.
The
The
2 of
yellow
them
springs
walked out
opened
from the
the
front
way,
hall,
and the
looking at
netherworld
the
welcomed
young man
the
in
enemy.
front of them.
Fresh
They had
blood
different
splattered
thoughts.
on the sword.
He still
blooming
came
like a waterfall.
Ning Chen glanced
The
at
legend of
Xianji.
Grand Xia had
Please.
revealed his killing
Xianji
intent.
earnestly said,
His black hair
Wuxia
danced in the
stand back.
wind,
and
his
his
sword
sword
aura
aura
was
was murderous.
Yes.
In an
Wuxia
instant,
nodded
another
and
figure
retreated
died
to
under
the
his
side.
sword. The
At
Azure
that
Sparrow
moment,
flew out.
a black
followed
ancient
by
bow
vast
was drawn
sword.
from the Zhao
The moment
family's
they
camp
camped
behind
behind
Prince
trembled.
Yan.
Sword against
Horrifying
sword.
chi flowed in
At
the
this
air.
moment,
Dark
there
blue
was only
light
the
gathered
battle of
together
swords, and formed
the
an
past had come
extremely
to an end.
horrifying arrow.
In the end,
It tore through
they
the
had
air.
returned to the
The
beginning
moment
of
the
the
arrow
battle
shot
of
out,
swords.
the space
Their
trembled.
true essence was
Qing Hong
restrained,
sensed it,
but
and the
danger
sword
still
aura
spread
surrounded
out.
them. The legend
Between
of
the
Xia
swords,
leaned to the
no
side,
one showed
and
any
the arrow
mercy.
brushed past his shoulder. Strands of black hair
Chapter
fell to
to the ground.
You
The
are
battle
already
of the
dead.
Marquis' manor
Prince
was a
Yan's
battle
eyes
of the
turned cold.
past. He waved
Life
his
and death
hand,
didn't matter
and the
between
sand sword and
swords.
Jiga's spear
The
flew
clanging
out.
of swords,
The green
and
and
the
red
rustling
swords
of the
left
wind
his
were
hands
shocking.
and turned into
A rarely
shooting
seen
stars
sword
that
battle
shot
was
into the
quietly
sky.
taking place
Four
within the
swords moved the
Marquis'
world.
manor.
Heaven and
The
earth
manor's
fell
guards
together.
couldn't help turning
It was
their
a move
heads
that
to
appeared
look
for
at
the
the
first
battle of
time in the
swords.
mortal world.
They couldn't move
The
their
four
eyes
swords
away.
shook the four
If it were
directions
any other
and fell
day,
down with a
they
loud
wouldn't
bang.
even have the
Heaven and earth
qualifications to
collapsed
get
along
close
with
to
it.
such a battle.
The collapsed
Only
void
today
brought
were
about
they
a
able to
series
watch
of
it up
pitch-black
close.
ravines.
After an
Blood
unknown
and
amount
broken
of
limbs
time,
flew
the
everywhere.
moon was high in
After
the
the
sky.
terrifying
The
strike,
clanging of swords
the
finally
nearest dozen
ended.
inborn experts
After the
were all sent
transformation,
flying.
Xian
In the
Tian no
Zhao
longer
family's
hesitated.
Blood
His
and bones
limitless
splattered
sword was
everywhere.
as sharp as before.
The man with the bow
Ning Chen
spurted
raised his
blood all
sword
over his body
before the
like
burden
rain.
on his shoulders
He fell
fell.
powerlessly to the
He didn't
ground,
allow anyone
blood
to stop
gushing
him.
out from his mouth.
The sharpness of
The
his sword
horrifying
pressed
scene
down on
shocked everyone's
people's
hearts.
The leaders
With a
of the
clang,
three families
the two
landed
swords
on the
met.
ground and
A strand of hair
blood.
fell from
They
Xian
barely
Tian's
managed
ear.
to stabilize
He sheathed
themselves.
his limitless sword
Looking
and
at the
left.
miserable scene
After
in
this
front of
battle,
them,
he had no regrets.
they were shocked and couldn't
Ning Chen
believe
looked
it.
at the departing
The Zhao
purple
family
white
will
figure.
will.
His plain
The man
clothes
in the
tore
purple
apart.
robe with the bow
He's
lost
different
his
from
spirit,
before. He
said
didn't
Wan
have time to
Fengchen.
finish his
Yes.
sentence.
Ning
The
Zhao
Zhao
family
family
that dominated
truly
the
was
four
different.
states
Can you
finally
tell me
tasted
what's
the
going
most
on with the
painful
moon in
pain
the
today.
sky?
Wan
Retreat.
Fengchen raised his
Seeing
head
that the
to look at the
situation was
blood-red moon in the
unfavorable,
sky.
The red
It's a
robed
long
Buddha
story.
moved his feet.
Ning Chen
and
told
let the
him
Buddhist
everything
behind
that
him
had
out of the
happened
battle.
recently.
The Rong
Meng
family,
Xuanji and Wan
Xiao
Fengchen
family,
had both
and
come.
Yin family
It
also
seemed
didn't
that the
dare
other
to continue
experts of the
fighting
four
and quickly
extremities
retreated.
would also
Clang.
come to the divine
The green
prefecture
red
to find the
sand
source.
and Jiga's spear
Hopefully
returned
this
to their
wasn't a
sheaths
disaster
and landed on the sword
After
rack.
hearing the whole story,
Prince Yen withdrew
Wan
his killing
Fengchen
intent
couldn't hide his shock
and looked at the girl
Did such
beside
a terrifying
him.
monster
He said
really
calmly,
exist in this
"Let's
world?"
go.
He
It's
had only
time to
heard
send
of
the void
ancient
scroll
sages
over.
at the peak of the three calamities,
A man nodded
being able to
obediently.
affect the heavens.
She went forward
As
and
for
carried the
existences
sword rack
beyond
on her
that
back,
level,
and left
it was
with the
hard to
former.
imagine.
Jiming
Where's
Marquis
Meng
Manor?
Xuanji? Asked Wan Fengchen. Under
She's
the
a bit
moonlight.
injured.
Bai
She's
looked at the
currently
moon
in
quietly.
seclusion healing.
She couldn't help but
Ning
miss
Chen
it.
replied,
Only
"Last
after
time,
tasting the
there had
warmth
been
and
an accident
coldness of the world,
Bai Jiang had
would
been
one know
injured
how
but
deep
hadn't
it was.
died.
After
Suddenly,
all, she felt a
Meng
sharp
Xuanji
pain in her
hadn't
heart.
reached the three
It was
calamities
as if 1,000
and
knives
didn't
had
have
been
the
carved
glorious
into her
battle
heart,
armor
like
one
Marquis
after
triumphant
another.
return.
In the homeland
Last
of
time,
Western Buddha,
Xinji also
a man
had the
looked
same
at the
black
words
aura,
on the void
but it was
scroll in
much
front of
weaker
her.
than Bai Zhang's.
Her vital energy
It could be
turned
seen
into a
that the
knife,
existence
and
behind
carved
the
into her
eternal
heart
night
stroke
sack
was
stroke.
more powerful than
It was
before.
the first time someone
the eternal
could use
night
the
god
heart
cult
carving
still had Bai
technique
Jiang
after
and
1,000
Rong Lu.
years.
Two
They
supreme
were
experts
separated
in
by
the
two
two disaster
planes,
realms,
and the news
they
was
still
completely
couldn't gain the
blocked.
upper hand
No
in a
method
head-on
would work.
confrontation.
Only through
They
two
had to
people
think of
who
a
were
way to
completely
divide the
connected
two.
by blood.
There was
Could
no
the
such thing
contents
as
of the void
absolute
scroll
loyalty
be
in an
transmitted
alliance of
to the
interests.
divine great land.
Chaotic wind
In front
dust.
of our man,
I have something I need
Prince
your
Yen
help
stood
with,
with his back to
said
her.
Ning Chen seriously.
He was silent.
Go ahead.
The pain in his
Chaotic
heart
wind
wasn't
dust
something
replied.
that ordinary
Ning Chen
people
explained
could
the
endure.
plan in detail.
The persistence of these two
Rong Lu
juniors
came
was
from the
heartbreaking.
west. The
And
words
was
were carved
unfamiliar
into
with the
their hearts.
situation in the
The
divine
two
land.
people who were separated
Now that
by
Wan
two planes
Fengchen
were
was the
enduring
master
great
of a
pain.
saint land. However,
It would be better
was
for
only
her to
at
get
this
in
moment
touch
that
with
they
Rong
could
Lu
feel
Wan
each other's
Fengchen's
existence.
eyes narrowed.
Drops of
Only
blood
the person
dripped
in
from the
front of
corners
him
of
could
their
come up
mouths
with such a
and
plan.
dyed their clothes
Be
red.
careful.
This was the
Rong
sudden
Lu is
fate
not
of the
easy to deal
barbarian
with,
palace.
Ning Chen warned.
From that moment
Rest
on,
assured,
the two were
Wan
tightly
Fengchen
bound
nodded.
together.
Even
They
if
were
he
once
made a
young
mistake
girls
and
who
couldn't
didn't
win,
understand the world.
running away was
They
more
were
than
once
enough.
young boys with
After
weak
midnight,
wings.
Wan
When they
Fengchen
first
also
met,
left.
their
Ning
slightly
Chen looked at
childish
the blood
words
moon
were
in the
indeed
sky,
the best memories
unable
in the
to
world.
hide the worry in
the
his
moon
eyes.
traveled to the west.
Even though he had more
a
helpers
blood-stained
now,
heavenly
he
book
still
was
didn't have
transmitted
much
from the
confidence
homeland
in
of
facing
Western
this
Buddha
unknown
to
enemy.
the divine great
In the
land.
study,
After
Ning
the
Chen
last
pushed
stroke,
open the
a man
bookshelf
smiled and
walked in.
fainted.
Compared
in the
to last
Jiming Marquis
time,
manner,
Chuli's
Bai's
expression
expression
had
had changed a lot.
She walked into the
She
study
was calmer
and
and
closed
less
the door.
murderous.
In Mingyang
Jiming
country,
Marquis,
in front
how
of
long
Mount
do you plan on
Fupon where
keeping
snow
me
and
here?
cherry blossoms
Asked
were
Chuli
falling.
coldly.
A dark
I
aura
want to see the
descended.
eternal night
Looking
hierarch.
at the snow-covered
Miss
mountain
Chuli,
pass.
do you have any
She turned
ideas?
into a stream of
Ning
light
Chen
and
didn't
walked
beat
up.
around the bush
So it was
and
here.
got straight to
He
the
should
point.
have thought of it earlier.
Chuli frowned.
Mount Fupon,
and raised her
Mingyang's
head to
sacred
look
mountain.
at the young man in
Hydra
front of
was
her.
a god that
What was
Mingyang
this
country
Jiming
believed
Marquis
in.
planning?
It wasn't
Miss
surprising
Chuli,
that they were
I
hiding
don't have
here.
any ill intentions.
Jing Hong's figure
However,
appeared and
if
quickly
you insist
followed.
on not cooperating,
In Mount Fupon,
I can't
Bai
guarantee
Jiang
that we
walked down
can
the
still
mountain
talk
step by
calmly
step.
like we are now.
After the
Said
volcano
Ning Chen
stopped
seriously.
erupting, the
Hearing
dead
this,
mountain became
Chuli's
Hydra's
eyes
residence.
flashed coldly.
Everywhere
A
there
moment
was a
later,
bone-chilling
she
aura.
restrained herself.
After walking
The
for a
person
long
in
time,
front of her was
Bai
the
Jiang
Jiming
stopped Marquis, looking at the mountain rocks in front of him,
concern
he
for
turned
the
his
fairer
palm
sex.
and slammed it down.
Angering him wouldn't do her any good.
The heaven and earth
The hierarch
shook.
has always
Among
been a
the broken
loner.
rocks,
I can't
a
do
strange
anything
black
about
ball
it,
of light
said
flew out.
Chuli as calmly
Before it
as
could
she could
escape,
while suppressing her
it was
anger.
caught by
That
Jiang,
really is a
and
pity.
its spiritual
Ning Chen
consciousness
sighed
was
regretfully
erased.
and walked out.
Behind him, Li
Miss,
Luo
if you're
frowned
about to
slightly.
die,
He
do you
didn't
see
see
what
what
the
the
ball
ball
of
of
light
light
was
was
in
in
by
by
Jiang's
Jiang's
hand?
hand.
His final words echoed through the secret room.
The 3 temple
Chu
lords
Li's
had different
expression became
missions
angry
and had different
but before
information.
she could say anything,
Even though he was
the
the
door
eternal
to the
night
secret room
hierarch,
had already
he
closed.
couldn't easily
3
interfere
days
with
later,
the missions of the
a
other
martial
2
Marquis
temple lords.
decree regarding the,
The 2 left
execution
one
of the
after the
eternal
other.
night martial
In the
crown
Jiming
spread
Marquis
throughout the
manner,
world.
Xing
Ning
Hong's
Chen
figure
had
walked
written
out
it
of the
in such
study.
a flamboyant
The same
manner
face appeared
that
in
he
2
hadn't
places at
concealed
the
it in
same
the
time.
slightest.
The next
Within
moment,
the eternal
she
night
walked out of
god
the manor.
sect,
When
the
by
spies
Jiang
received
eternal
this
night
report,
cult who had
he
been
couldn't
lurking
suppress
outside
his
the
anger.
manor,
This
saw
was
the
clearly
figure
a
walking out of the
provocation,
manor.
Be
And
careful,
immediately
warned
followed.
Rong Luai.
However, Whether
They
or
lost
not it's
track
a trap,
of the former
I still
after
have
less
to
than
save
10
you,
miles out
said
of the
Bai
imperial
Jiang.
city.
In the
Rong Lu
academy,
faintly laughed.
Qing Hong's
His
figure
words
appeared
were
with
filled
a
with
different
mockery.
face.
I
It
didn't
was the
expect
Jiming
the head of the
Marquis,
martial
who
crown
was
to be
rumored
someone
to be
who has
seriously
tender
injured
feelings
and
for the
dying.
fairer sex.
Teacher, I
Rong
found the
Lu,
no scroll.
please pay attention to
Ning
your
Chen
words.
said solemnly in
I'm
the
not
wooden
always
house.
in the mood to listen
Hearing
to your
this,
jokes.
the teacher
said
who was
Bai
sorting
Jiang
out the
coldly.
ancient books
Naturally,
paused.
Lord
He raised
Martial's
his head
crown
and said
please
slowly,
go ahead. Go find
Rong
Gao
Lu's
Kui.
lips
He
curled
will
into
guide
an
you in
icy
cultivation.
smile.
He didn't say
I still have
anything
something
else.
to worry about.
Within
I hope
the eternal
teacher can
night
give me
god
some
sect's
advice,
first palace,
Ning Chen said.
Luo Fei looked
What
at
is
the
it?
empty throne.
The teacher asked.
After a long time,
Ziyi's
she
soul
turned
is
and left.
still in the central
At the
spirit
same
region.
time, 15
Is there
miles
any way to
away
get
from
it
the
back?
eternal night god
Ning
sect.
Chen asked.
Luan
The
Fengchen
teacher
walked
was
over
silent
and
for a
calmly
moment
stood
and
there,
said,
waiting for
If the
Rong Lu to
hierarch of the
appear.
eternal night
A beautiful
cult can get
figure
his
flew
weapon
out,
back,
and
his
then
strength
disappeared
can
a
barely
moment
reach
later.
the level of the
Luan
third
Fengchen
disaster.
didn't pay
In
attention
the
to
central
her.
spirit
Her
region,
goal was only
he
Rong
may
Lu.
be able to exchange
As for
a
the
few
other
blows
troubles,
with the seven
Ning Chen would
Jutian,
have to deal with
whose
them
strength
himself.
is limited.
Within the
If you want to
Jiming
save
Marquis
Xiaozi's
residence,
soul,
this
after
is
the
the
only
execution
way.
order was sent
Ning
out.
Chen narrowed his eyes.
It became the focus
The difficulty
of everyone's
of this
attention.
matter wasn't small.
The eternal night martial
Although Li
crown
Luo knew the
was a
location of the
half-step
smoky cloud
disaster
divine
expert.
spear.
This
He
shocking
still needed
news
to pass
shook
through
the
the
entire
Nether King's
divine
protection.
continent.
Facing
In this
an
world,
expert who was
the
close
only
to the
person
peak
who
of the
would
three
dare to openly
disasters,
provoke the
he didn't
eternal
have
night
much
god
confidence.
sect was
The
the
central
person
spirit
in the
region was
Jiming
the
Marquis
border
between the
residence.
two worlds.
Within the Marquis
Yama
residence,
could not reach the
Ning
divine
Chen
land,
calmly waited in
and
the
they could not
courtyard.
reach the
He
world where
released his
Yama
aura
was.
without hiding
The
it at
central
all.
spirit region
He was waiting for
supported
the
by
eternal
smoke
night
cloud
god
divine
sect's
hierarch to come.
so it could only
Of
bear a
course, if he
limited
caught
amount
some
of
other
power.
fish, he would be
Yama
happy
also
to
did
see
not
them.
dare to send
Although
too much
Chuli
power.
was easily angered,
However,
he knew too little.
even so,
The person
an
he
enemy
wanted
who
to
was
see the
close to the
eternal
great
night god
perfection
sect's
of the
hierarch
three
the
disasters
most.
was not easy
After
to
playing
pass.
dead for so long,
Once you master
he
the
even
forbidden
fooled his
move
own
of the life
subordinates.
scroll,
There
your
had to be
body
some
and
reason
foundation will
outside
improve
the
rapidly
imperial
in
city.
a short time.
A pair of
This
calm
is also
eyes
the
quietly
fastest
looked
way
in the
to
direction
improve your
of the
strength
Jiming
in a
Marquis
short time.
residence.
However,
Suddenly,
this
a beautiful
move can be
figure
cultivated
faded
but
but
not
not
used.
Finally,
Remember,
a trace of
the teacher
fluctuation
reminded
flashed
him
across the
seriously.
calm eyes.
Yes, thank
With
you
a
for your
soft sigh,
advice.
The
Ning
figure
Chen
of
nodded
Qing Hong
and bowed
walked out from the
respectfully before
darkness
leaving
and chased
Half
after
a day
her.
later,
She's here.
Qing Hong returned
Under
to
the
the
moonlight
Marquis mansion.
Ning Chen
In the
looked
dead
at
of
the
night,
beautiful figure
Li
in the
Luo
distance
appeared out
and
of
narrowed
nowhere
his
in the
eyes.
courtyard.
The bright
The two of
moonlight
them,
carried a
one in
murderous
the
aura,
light and one
her
in the
slender
dark,
hands
sat
slapped down
across
with
from each
anger,
other in the
hatred,
academy,
and regret.
exchanging
The powerful
information.
palm made the real moon in the sky lose its color.
Sect Master,
Scroll of the moon.
I have a
Moonfall.
question I've always wanted to ask. Is this the
Chapter
original appearance of your
354.
body?
The moon
Asked
fell
Ning
from the
Chen.
sky with the
Of
power
course.
to split
Li
open
Luo
the
took a
sky.
sip of tea.
Guang Han fell.
Otherwise,
as if the
how
sky
could I
was
hide it
falling.
from Pai Jiang?
Ning Chen turned
One
his palm
person
to
having
block
two
the
bodies.
attack.
His
His
whole
whole
body
body was shining with silver
Ning
light.
Chen sighed.
He rushed forward, and
It's
his
just
feet
an
sank
incomplete
3 inches
copy
into the ground.
that was passed down
Broken
after
stone
the 5
slabs
regions
flew in
were
the courtyard.
purged.
It's
Sword
long
Bodhi
been
walked
incomplete.
out.
Buddha
If you want to
energy
learn
spread
it,
out
I
and
can teach you.
stabilized the shaking
Li Luo
ground.
smiled.
Luo
Then
Fei's
thank
face
you
was
for your
full of
generosity,
anger.
senior.
This was the first
Said Ning
time
Chen
she used her full
respectfully.
strength.
Hey,
since
don't
she
call
came
me
out
senior.
of seclusion.
We're not that
Ning
close.
Chen condensed his
Furthermore,
fingers into
I
a
can't
sword
teach you for
and fought
free.
the furious
You have to
eternal
pay for
night
it.
sect girl.
Li Luo
Between
smiled.
the sword moves,
Ning Chen's
70% of it was attacking
Whatever the
and
Marquis
30%
mansion
of
has
it
that
was
sect
defending.
master likes,
The
you can
brilliance
take.
of the moon swayed in the night sky. Luo Fei descended like the goddess
Chapter
of Guang Han.
357.
Between the moves, killing
besides a
intent
few
was
girls in
revealed.
your mansion,
She was no
you
longer
only
as
have a
calm
single
as
monk.
before.
What
The
do you
battle
think you
of
can
the
pay?
heavenly book martial
Li Luo
arts
smiled.
had reached a
What
climax
does
in
religion
the
master
Marquis
want?
mansion.
Ning
Luo
Chen
Fei,
asked back.
who was at
Heavenly
the peak of the
tomes,
4
Li Luo
tribulations,
lightly said.
was a
Ning
person
Chen
with great
narrowed his eyes.
perseverance.
With
After
religion
stepping
master's
into the innate
cultivation,
realm, does it
she
matter
abolished
if you
her
have a heavenly
cultivation
tomes or
and
not?
recultivated the
Just
moon
because
scroll.
I don't need it
Her
doesn't mean I
foundation
don't
was
want it.
extraordinary.
One for one,
Facing the knowing
no one will
destiny
suffer
state
a
with
loss.
3 scrolls,
Li Luo
she did
remained
not show the
unmoved.
slightest fear.
Which volume does
The sword
religion
and
master
palm
want?
collided. Ningchen put down the tea in his hand. There was even more danger. The life volume move was like the road to the underworld. Then forget it. Are you the only one who shook his head? Ningchen stepped on the water. When his body was like the life volume in the past, his sword moved so fast that I wouldn't give it to anyone else. I am enough. This junior doesn't have the fortune to cultivate religion. The moonlight around her dispersed. In the moon, the real and the fake appeared. He picked up the tea in his cup hand and silently tasted it. Ningchen met the attack head-on. He looked up and his eyes narrowed. Let's change the conditions. Book indeed had its own mysteries. You will give 30% of the life volume's cultivation method to Luofei. Even if she did, as well as the heaven her full strength. Ningchen forcibly resisted the urge to throw the teacup at the former's face. The battle for the heavenly tones was incomparably magnificent. You really know how to take advantage of a burning house. The goddess of Guanghan's robes fluttered in the wind. This
Her
is the
moves
last
were as
condition.
graceful as a
Do you want to
phoenix's
change
dance.
it or not?
She was so
Li Luo
powerful
smiled.
that it was shocking.
Change it.
The eternal
Ning
night
Chen
sex's
squeezed out
daughter,
a word from
who had
between
once
clenched
caused
teeth.
Zhong Qinxiu
Li
to
Luo
feel
casually
apprehensive,
took out a tattered
displayed
jade
a
page
shocking
and
martial
tossed
art.
it over.
She was
He
like
chuckled.
a banished immortal.
Here, take it.
And the moonlight
It seems
illuminated
religion
the nine
master
heavens.
has already prepared
Ning
it.
Chen used his
Ning
finger
Chen
as a
received
sword.
the jade page.
He pointed, slashed,
From the
swept,
moment
and shook.
we met,
He did
I
not dare to
discovered
be
that you were
careless.
always thinking
The
about this
pressing killing
cultivation
intent
method.
overflowed.
Do you really
The
think
goddess
I
of
don't know
Guanghan
anything?
was suppressing
Li
the
Luo
knowing
slowly
destiny
said.
state.
The older
The
the
battle was
ginger,
in a
the
stalemate.
spicier it is.
Excuse me.
Ning Chen chuckled
Seeing
and
Luofei's
casually
amazing
said,
strength,
Religion
Ning Chen
master
took half a
gave me the
step back.
cultivation method
His expression
first.
hardened and
Aren't
he
you
clenched
afraid
his
this
hand.
junior will go
Not
back
too
on
far
his
away.
word?
A
I
long
can beat
mahogany
several
box
of you by
opened,
myself.
and a blue
What am
sparrow
I
flew
afraid
out.
of?
A
Li
cold
Luo's
sword
words
light
were
shined
filled
in
with
the moonlight,
disdain.
threatening the
Ning
mind.
Chen was speechless.
With
the
the
sword
sword
in
in
his
page
hand,
was modeled in
knowing
ancient.
Ming's aura
It had
changed
long been
abruptly.
damaged beyond
His
repair.
murderous aura surged,
Fortunately,
completely
the
different
words
from
recorded
before.
on it could still
When
be
the
read.
sword came out of
Ning Chen
overturning
read it
snow,
for a moment and
the
frowned.
world turned solemn.
Sect master,
The surging
how many
splendor
years
of the
have you
frost
spent
brought about a
cultivating
boundless
this body?
chill.
Ning
Stop.
Chen raised his
At this
head
moment,
and clenched his teeth.
a calm voice
Li
sounded
Luo
in the
sipped the
courtyard.
tea in his cup
A green-red
unhurriedly and
figure
replied,
appeared out of nowhere.
It's been over 100
and blocked
years.
the murderous sword with his
It's been
saber.
too long, I
You're
can't
finally
remember.
willing to show yourself.
Ning Chen didn't know what
Ning
to
Chen
say.
waved his hand.
It seemed that he
and
couldn't
the Azure
expect the
Sparrow
clone to
returned
have
to
much
its
combat
sheath.
power
Jimmy
in a short
Marquis,
period of
I
time.
can't hide anything
Let me
from
remind
you.
you that if
Li
the
Luo
clone
sighed
dies
softly.
the main body
then he
will be
glanced
heavily
at the nearby
injured
Bodhi
and might
sword
even
and
die
said,
with it.
Grandmaster,
So before the clone has
I
a
never
certain amount of
expected that we would
ability
meet
to
again
protect
so
itself,
soon.
you
Amipa,
must be careful.
This poor monk
Li
greets
Luo
you,
sternly
said
reminded.
Jian Bodhi with a smile.
Grandmaster
Thank
is
you
too
for your
polite.
reminder, Sect
Li Luo
Master,
smiled.
Ning Chen replied.
Father, this
Looking
time,
at the strange
Pai
yet
Jiang
familiar
went to
back in
Fupan
front of
Mountain
her
and took out
Luofei's
something
eyes
unknown.
flashed with disbelief.
In all likelihood,
Silly
it
daughter,
is related to the
Li
seven
Luo
absolute
turned back
heavens.
and gently said,
In the near
Jimmy
future,
Marquis,
Pai
was
Jiang
the
will
only
likely make
person in
another
the
move.
world who knew he
I
wasn't
cannot
dead.
stay here for long.
Before he appeared,
If there is
Chuli would be
anything,
fine.
just tell Luofei.
He didn't know if
She
he
knows
should
how
be
to inform
gratified
me
or helpless
Li
to
Luo
have
said,
such a sentimental
yes.
daughter.
Ning Chen
Ruoshi,
nodded and said,
invite Miss
the matter
Luofei
of
in
the
for
smoke
tea.
cloud divine
Ning
spear
Chen looked
still
at
needs
Ruoshi
some time.
behind Jian Bodhi
Once the
and
battle
ordered,
forces are
Yes,
gathered,
I will
Ruoshi
inform
walked
the
out and
sect
came to
master.
Luofei's side.
Li Luo
Miss
nodded
Luofei,
and
please.
stood up to bid farewell.
Luofei glanced
Take
at the
care.
two people in
Be
front
careful.
of her, unable
Take
to
care.
understand what
Ning
was
Chen
going
sternly
on.
said,
Go.
Li Luo
I have
turned
something
and
to
left.
discuss with
The
Jimmy
door
Marquis.
to the study opened
Li
and
Luo
Xing
said,
Hong's figure
Luofei
scattered,
left with a puzzled
disappearing
Ruoshi.
in an instant.
Jian Bodhi
Not long
also
after
returned
Li
to
Luo
his room
left,
to rest.
there was a
After
knock on the
completing
door
his
outside
task.
the study.
In the courtyard,
Come in.
there were
Ning
only
Chen
two
replied.
people left. Luofei
The
pushed
atmosphere
open the
was
door and
stagnant
entered.
and
She
indescribably
opened the
heavy.
still warm tea
The
on
tea
the
is
table
ready,
and
please.
frowned.
Father
Ning Chen
came.
calmly said
He
first.
just left.
Deference
Ning
is
Chen
no
honestly
substitute
said,
for obedience.
I don't want to ask about
Li
your
Luo
matters.
faintly smiled
I
and
just
followed.
want to tell you that
In
the
the
strength
study,
of the seven
under the
absolute
slightly dim
heavens
candlelight,
is not
two
something a
faces
human
were
can compare
reflected.
with.
The
If
tea
you
was
want to
boiling
deal
and
with
steam
him,
rose.
the only way is
Sect
to
leader,
stop him
please.
from descending.
Ning Chen
Do not
personally
try to
poured a
fight him
cup of
directly,
tea,
Luofei
and pushed it in
solemnly
front
said.
of the former.
Ning Chen sighed
Li Luo
inwardly.
took a sip of the
He
tea
also
with a
didn't
faint
want to
smile
face
on
such
his
a
face.
monster.
Unfortunately, he had no other
extraordinary.
choice.
But
Your
Luofei,
tea brewing
thank you
skills
for
are really
exciting you.
ordinary. Ning Chen
Fighting
earnestly
too many
said.
battles.
At that time,
These hands only
if
know how to
Luofei had
use the
told him
sword.
where Xianyu
Ning
was,
Chen said with
he
a
wouldn't
hidden
have been
meaning.
able to rescue
The
her.
Grand Xia
He
being
would
able
always
to hold
remember
on
this
to
kindness
this day is indeed
Luofei
beyond my
nodded
expectations.
and turned to leave
Jimmy
without
Marquis'
saying
ability
anything
is
else.
amazing.
Miss Luo,
Li
please
Luo
wait.
didn't hesitate to
At this
praise.
time,
Originally,
Ning Chen stood up and
when he came
condensed
to the
energy
Grand
with his
Xia,
fingers.
he couldn't
A
get
silver
past the
brilliance
northern
rose
Ming
from
royal
his
court.
body.
He
And
didn't
an
expect
extremely
the
cold
final
energy
result
stirred
to
up
be
the
beyond
ice
his
and snow in the
expectations.
room.
It
It was like
Failing
winter
you as
had
life was
arrived,
consumed
a
little by
beautiful
little.
sight to behold.
Several months
I
earlier
promised
than
your father
expected.
that I would transfer
As for
the chaos of the
30%
four
of the
poles
life
later,
scrolls cultivation
except
method
for the
to you.
strength of the master
As
of the
his
four
voice
poles.
fell, wind
Nothing
and
else
snow
was
swirled,
worth mentioning.
gathering around
Sect
Luofei. leader overpraises
In the next
me.
moment, her clothes flashed as true essence
for
crossed
so long.
Ning Chen's chi.
Shouldn't you give me
and
an
poured into her
explanation?
dantian.
The tea in the cup was
heart
upside
shook.
down like small
At this
needles.
time,
She
Ning
didn't
Chen
dare to be
calmly
distracted
said as he felt the warmth
She
from
revolved
the
the
tea.
Book of Moon.
It's a long
Guiding
story.
the life scroll's
Since
cultivation
Julie was
method
captured,
to rapidly
Jimmy
spread out.
Marquis must have
A quarter
already found
hour
out
later,
the name of Yama.
outside the Marquis
Luo
mansion,
said indifferently.
dark clouds covered
7
the moon.
absolute heavens.
A heavy pressure
The
fell
god that
down,
the eternal night
as if the
sect
heavens
believes
were
in.
falling.
Ning Chen
replied,
withdrew his hand.
Does Jiming Marquis
He looked at the
believe
dark
that there are
clouds
gods
outside
in the
and
world?
said,
Miss
Luo
Luo
asked,
I wish
there
you
shouldn't
success.
be. Ning
With
Chen's
the arrival
hand
of the
holding the
fifth
teacup
Xiantian
paused for a moment
formation,
before he
the
replied,
entire imperial
there shouldn't
court
be,
was filled with this
but many
heavy
things
pressure.
in the world that
Luo
shouldn't
took
be
a
can
step
really
forward
exist,
and quickly
Luo
vanished
said.
from the room.
With a crack,
Rushing
the
out
teacup
of the
shattered.
imperial court.
Ning Chen looked
Within
at
the
the blood
study,
dripping from his
Ning
hand.
Chen waved his
A cold
hand
light
and
flashed
closed the
in his
door.
eyes. The separation of the 5
He looked at the
regions
jade
was also
tome in
his
his
doing.
hands. Yes,
a dignified
and no.
expression
Li
on
Luo
his face.
sighed and continued.
The cultivation method that he had
years
lost
ago
could be restored.
He had already descended
this avatar
once and
technique was
completely
indeed
wiped
more
out the 5
important to him
regions,
right now,
leaving
with
only
the
a
cries
few
of a
races
phoenix
to continue.
Phoenix blood flew
The
out.
separation of the
Layer
5
after
regions
layer of blood
was
red
because
light
they couldn't
gathered
bear his
together.
might.
The
The
heavenly
divine
soul left
continent
the
was
body
accidentally
and fused
separated
into
from
the
the other
Phoenix
4
blood.
regions.
Heaven, earth, and
Strictly
life,
speaking,
these 3
it
scrolls
wasn't his
revolved
wish.
together. It was
True
just an
essence
accident.
nourished the soul.
Sounds like
And the
nonsense
Phoenix
to
blood
me.
condensed into an
Ningchen
avatar.
said coldly.
In the
There were
end,
gods in the
humans
world.
were not gods.
Was there anything more
They could not
ridiculous
create
than
avatars
this?
out of thin air.
You've personally
As the
experienced
avatar
how
appeared,
terrifying he
the
is.
aura of the main
Whether
body
it's true or
rapidly
not,
weakened.
I don't need
True
to explain.
essence and blood vitality
Li Luo
were
replied.
rapidly consumed.
Ningchen pondered
Time
for a
passed
moment,
day after day,
then raised his head
for over
and
10
said,
days.
The Marquis
Master
doesn't want to be the master of the divine continent.
No one dared to disturb him.
Li Luo
Half a month
smiled
later,
and said,
Luofei walked out.
If I want to do it,
She
I'll
took
do it
2
myself.
steps and vanished
There's
from
no
sight.
need for others
In
to
the Chizhou
interfere.
mountain range,
Ningchen
in the
stared
ancient
at the
land
person
that
in front of
stretched for
him.
tens of
After a
thousands of
long
miles,
time, he slowly
Luofei
said,
appeared.
Where is
Senior
Senior
Dao's
Dao's
lost soul?
Ningchen stopped
The central
and said,
spirit region.
At this time,
The border between the
earth shook
divine
and a
continent
giant crack
and his
slowly
world.
opened.
It's currently
Swallowing
being
Dao
held
Kuei
back
within.
by the yin
This
divine
was the second
spear.
time they met.
To ensure that
The
the
exhaustion in Dao Kuei's
completely
eyes was
separate.
even more obvious.
Is this also the reason
there was
why
a
you
faint
can't take
smile
out
on
the
his
yin
young
divine
face,
spear?
as warm and gentle as
Ningchen
ever.
frowned.
Senior.
Yes.
Ningchen
Li Luo
respectfully
nodded
bowed.
and explained.
The more he learned,
Although Yama can't
the more he was
descend on the
moved
divine
by Dao
continent
Kuei and his
he
teacher's
can send a
persistence.
portion of his power
These two
to the
were
central
truly
spirit
selfless
region.
people.
At
For
the
the
very
sake
least,
of the common
he's
people,
close to the peak
they
of
didn't
the
want
3
to suffer in the
disasters.
great
With
calamity
my strength
1,000
alone,
years from
I
now.
can't take it out.
They had waited for 1,000
Ningchen
years.
narrowed his eyes and
Even
asked,
the ancient sages
as long as
could
I
not
take out the
compare to
divine
them.
spear,
There's
he
not
won't
much
be able
time
to
left.
descend.
Let's begin.
In theory, that's the
said Jiang
case.
Wangji.
Once the
Yes.
divine spear is
Ningchen
taken out,
sat down
the 2
and began
worlds
to
will be
circulate the
separated.
life scroll.
However, this
At
is
the
only
same
my
time,
guess.
the void scroll
Li Luo said
converged.
seriously.
One was life,
Sect
the other
masters
was
should have
destruction.
more opportunities
They
on the
complemented
surface.
and supported
Why
each
are you
other,
pretending to be dead
reinforcing
and hiding
and
in the
suppressing
shadows?
each other.
Ningchen
Jiang
asked
Wangji
his
waved
last
his
question,
hand, and a
Monitor
purple zither
Zither
appeared.
appeared.
His
Li
fingers
Luo
strummed
said
it,
calmly,
and profound
the 3
music
palace
began
halls
to
of
ring
eternal
out,
night have
entering
different
Ningchen's
missions.
body. A 4th cyclone
Martial
gradually
monarch
appeared
is
in
in charge of the
Ningchen's
frontline
CFG.
battle.
Borrowing
Zhong
the power
Qianxiu
of the
is
profound
mainly in
music,
charge of handling
it
the
began
matter
to
of the
rapidly
Nether
grow.
King's descent.
You want to borrow
And
the
my
power
mission
of the
is to
3
borrow the
scrolls
strength
to use
of the
the life
Nether
scroll's
King
forbidden
and the
technique.
divine sex
Just as the 4
experts
scrolls reached
to
a
hold the
balance,
2 realms
the
together.
auras of the heaven,
The 3 palace
earth, and
masters
void
don't
scrolls
interfere with
rapidly
each
poured
other.
into the life
However,
scroll.
in recent
The balance
years,
between
the
life
central
and
spirit
destruction
region
was
has
instantly
gradually broken.
stabilized. Jiang
And with
Wangji
martial
sensed
monarch's
this,
death,
and his expression
the divine
was grave.
sex peak battle
Yes.
strength is
Ningchen
insufficient.
nodded. So my
I
mission
can help
has
you,
changed accordingly.
but you must remember
As for
that this
Bian
technique
Jiang
can be
coming out of
cultivated but
seclusion
not
at this
used.
time. After
He
saying
must have
this,
accepted Zhong
Jiang
Qianxiu's
Wangji plucked the
unfinished
zither
mission
strings with his
under
right
the
hand.
orders of the Nether
2
King.
ancient swords,
Ningchen
one
came
black
to a
and
sudden
one white,
realization.
flew out from
No
the
wonder
zither's
the
body.
3 great
The
shrines of
Taoist
Evernight
formation
had
was
emerged at
activated,
such different
and
times.
Yin and Yang
Outside the
transformed into
study,
Taiji.
the night gradually deepened.
The reflection
swords
of
formed
the
a
2 people's
formation around the
conversation
former
was
and
reflected
rotated
on the window.
continuously.
It was
At the
unknown how
same
much time had passed.
On the western front
At
of Great
daybreak,
Xia,
Ningchen
the
walked
allied
out of
army
the
of
study.
the 3 dynasties
Half a day
had
later,
gathered.
the
and
news
launched
of the
a fierce
Evernight
counterattack
sect's daughter
against
being
the
captured
Eternal Night
spread
cult.
once more,
For a
shocking
time,
the world.
the Eternal Night
Ever since
army
the war
was forced
between the
to
Grand
retreat
Xia
again
and the
again.
Evernight Church,
With Rong Lu
the
gone and
situation
Chu
hadn't
Lian
been
conscious.
optimistic.
The Eternal
Now
Night
that
cult
2
only
of the
had by
Evernight
Jiang
Church's
left.
most important
Even with
figures
fierce
had been
generals
captured,
like Residual
it was
Wind and
truly
Hua
shocking.
Zhuang. It was
Ningchen
still
couldn't
difficult
completely
to face
believe
the
allied
Evernight
army of
sect
the 3
master's
dynasties.
words.
The
On Great
Evernight sect
Xia's
master
side,
was also
after
clear on
Marquis
this point.
Jiming's accident,
If they wanted to
the
continue
forces that had fought
cooperating
against the
they
master
had
of
to
the
show
4
their
extreme
sincerity.
realms were all
Luofei
hidden,
staying in
and
the
did not
Marquis' manor
participate in this
was
war.
the Evernight sect
In the
master's
Marquis'
greatest
mansion,
sincerity.
a Marquis in
Of
red
course,
robes was always
the premise
in the
was
study.
that Luofei,
Although his face
and
was the
Chu Li
same
wouldn't
as
be in
Marquis
any
Jiming's,
danger. His
the
aura
2
was
reached
many
an
times
agreement.
weaker.
The
The one
Evernight
person
sect
double
master
transformation
would continue to
technique
appear
was
as
indeed
Luo
magical.
to secretly monitor
However,
Bianjiang.
its weakness was
and
also
find a
very
way to
obvious.
stop the Yama's descent.
The clone only had the
Ning
appearance,
Chen was responsible
and
for
its battle
continuing
strength
to
was
pressure
almost
Bianjiang,
negligible.
making
After
him
all,
reveal as much
not
as
everyone
possible.
could be like Li Luo.
As for retrieving
tempering
Xia
his
Zi's soul
avatar for
and the
100
Misty
years
Cloud spear,
and still fighting
that was
fiercely.
too difficult.
After all,
with his current
living
strength,
for a long
it was
time
impossible.
had its benefits.
He had to think of
Marquis,
another
the
way.
tea is cold.
3 days later,
Do you want another
the
cup?
autumn wind was bleak.
Ruashi walked
the
over
carriage
and asked
carrying
softly.
the prisoners was
No
heading
need.
towards the west
Ning Chen
meridian
picked up the
gate
teacup.
outside the palace.
The originally
The
cold
accompanying
tea
soldiers
immediately
were on
steamed up.
standby.
Has Luo
Heavens
not
reached
returned
realm
yet?
martial artists
Ning Chen
stood on
asked.
both sides of the
No.
carriage.
Ruashi
It was
shook
an
her head.
extraordinary
Ning
formation.
Chen frowned.
One could
After
see how
the fifth
important the
tribulation
person escorting
there
the
would be
prisoners
3
was.
disasters.
Evernight
However,
the
a
3
top
disasters
expert
were
half a
different
step
from
away
the
from
5
the 3
tribulations
disasters realm.
It was
He
hard
was
to
in
predict when they
existence
would
that could make
descend.
the world tremble.
If the 3
with the
disasters
stomp of
followed
his
after
foot.
the 5th
But
tribulation,
today,
he was
Luo
reduced
would be
to a
in trouble.
prisoner. and was
Do you
to
need
be
me to go
beheaded
take a
at the
look?
Meridian Gate.
Meng Xuanji
As they
walked
approached
over
the
and asked
Meridian
calmly.
Gate, suddenly,
Thank you, but be
a
careful.
powerful aura
Ning
descended
Chen
from the
urged.
sky.
Your safety.
Black waves of qi
Meng
covered the
Xuanji was a
sky
bit worried
and startled the
It's
people
fine.
in the city.
I don't doubt
His
the people
black
I
robe
use.
fluttered as he stood in
Ning
the
Chen
void.
replied.
Meng Xuanji nodded
Yan Jiang
and didn't
descended
say anything
without
else.
saying a word.
Since he
and
said
directly
so,
grabbed the
she
woman
could only
on the
trust his
prisoner
judgment.
carriage.
After
With the
Meng
lesson from
Xuanji
last
left,
time,
Ning
Yan
Chen
Jiang
had
had
learned
learned
his
his
lesson
and
and closed
Black
his
qi
eyes.
swirled around his
His
hand
face was
and
full of
sealed
exhaustion.
Chu Li's Dantian
What other
Qi.
details had he
At
not
this
thought
moment,
of?
the earth
What
trembled.
were the conditions for the
Sword qi
7
gushed out
extremes
from
to
the ground
descend
and
Ghost
rushed to the
origin,
9 heavens.
underworld origin,
Humph,
Dao
Yan
origin,
Jiang
and 7
snorted
extreme
and changed the
physiques.
direction of his
The
palm.
origins of these
Black
special
qi
physiques
surged and collided
had
with the
already
soaring
been taken
sword
away
qi.
by the
At this
eternal
moment,
night sect.
the light of Buddha
Why
shone.
would Bai Jiang go
Sala
to
opened
Manyang
its
countries
blade
Mount
and
Fupan?
cleansed the world.
The study quieted
Actually,
down
I
without
didn't
a
want to
trace of
come.
sound.
With a
Ruoxi's
soft sigh,
eyes flashed
Rong
with a
Lu
trace of
appeared and
unbearable
waved his
pain.
blade to block
She
the
stepped
ancient
forward
Sala
and gently
sword.
massaged
Everyone
Ning
could
Chen's
see through
temples.
such an obvious
Underworld
scheme.
origin.
Besides,
Dao origin,
he hated being
Ghost
schemed
origin.
against.
Ning Chen's mind flashed over and over again.
Chapter
After an unknown amount of time,
Sword
he
Bodhi
suddenly
and
stood
Rong
up.
Lu.
The
Old
old
rivals
rivals who had lasted for 100 years met
At
again.
this moment,
the Buddha
in the
and
Void
Rong Lu
Temple
were
of the
locked in
Eternal
battle.
Night God
In
sect.
front of the prisoner
Bai Jiang
carriage,
opened the Eternal
Ji Ming
Night
came out
scripture
and
floating
blocked
in the
with his
void,
sword, his
not
eyes
allowing
suddenly
Bai
lit
Jiang
up.
to get close.
Found it. You can leave now, Ning Chen said.
Yes.
The heavens reach martial
Chapter
artists and
358.
soldiers received
The
the
Eternal
order,
Night divine
and quickly
scripture
retreating
floating
from
in
the
the
air
air
emitted a
Bai
strange
Jiang
light.
was afraid of
On
Ji
the
Ming's
divine
sword and
scripture,
Chu Li,
a picture
so
of
he didn't
mountains
dare
and
to
rivers
act
appeared.
recklessly.
The
Bai
images
Jiang,
reflected
how about
in
we
it were
make a
clearly
deal?
visible.
Ning Chen said
So it was
calmly.
hiding here.
What deal?
Bai Jiang's eyes
flickered
flickered coldly.
After
If
searching
Rong
for
Lu
so
dies,
long,
I
he
will
had
let her
finally
go.
found it.
Ning Chen
Northern
said
Ming's
coldly.
royal court.
Bai Jiang's face
On the
darkened.
northwestern border
Did he
of a
think he
strange
was a fool
mountain,
to drive a
a
wedge
black
between
aura
them?
gathered.
Even if I kill
Jiang
you,
walked out,
I can still
and a
take her
powerful
away.
pressure descended.
Before he
All the
finished
birds
speaking,
and beasts
a
on the
black
mountain
light cried
flashed
out
and
in
Bai
fear.
Jiang attacked.
A blurry, translucent figure
a blade
appeared in front of him,
river, blocking
it
his
let out
way.
ear-piercing
You
shrieks.
again.
A
Seeing
water
the
demon
red figure in
Bai
front of
Jiang
him,
stopped, frowning
Bai Jiang
slightly.
couldn't suppress
An
his
ordinary
anger.
river
Who was this
was
person?
actually able to
I
give
just
birth
happened to
such
pass
a
by.
monster.
Li
It
Luo
wasn't
said with a
simple.
smile.
The water
Now,
demon had
how
already
confident
taken
do you
human
think you
form.
are in
It
rescuing
looked
him?
like a woman.
Ning Chen asked
but its
coldly.
facial features
Bai
were still a
Jiang's
bit
face
blurry.
changed several
The
times.
water demon,
He
which
transmitted
had
his
just
voice
gained
to Rong
sentience,
Lu, who was
could
fighting.
clearly sense
Their
how
target is you,
terrifying
be
the person
careful.
in front of it was.
Passerby.
Its
Can
shrieks
you
were
help me
filled
kill
with
the man
terror.
in red?
They were no
Ning
longer
Chen
on the
walked to
same
the prisoner
level.
carriage.
It felt
Put
like
his
it could
sword in
destroy
front of
anything.
Chu Li's throat
Bai Jiang
and stepped
stepped
into the
calmly.
river.
And
That's
the
what I was
entire river
thinking.
collapsed.
Li Luo
The
chuckled.
water demon's
His figure
newly
rushed
formed
into
body
the battle of the
immediately
Buddha Rong
collapsed
Lu,
without any resistance.
waving his blade to kill.
It was like a god
With the
crushing
two
an ant,
besieging,
cruel and
the
simple.
situation of
Bai
Rong
Jiang's
Lu was
steps
immediately
suppressed all life.
unfavorable.
No more
Bai
insects or
Jiang,
beasts
what are
dared
you
to block his
hesitating
path.
for?
Rong
A
Lu
moment
was
later,
furious and
mist
shouted,
gathered, blocking
the cold
his vision.
light of the blue
Bai
sparrow
Jiang
was in
sneered.
front of Chu Li's
It seemed
throat.
it had also
Bai
awakened.
Jiang's face was
Dark
livid,
light surged
and he
within
said in
the
a
fog.
deep voice,
No barrier
Ji
could
Ming
block
Marquis.
it.
The
I
thick
have seen
fog
your
was
despicable
instantly
shamelessness
dispelled.
today.
Wah wah.
Oh, thanks
At
for the
this
compliment.
moment,
A
how
young
about
baby's
this?
cry
I will
rang
take
out
a
from
step
the
back.
depths of a strange
You leave the
mountain.
imperial
It
city
was
now.
heart-wrenching,
And I swear
the
in
earth
the name of
rumbled,
Ji Ming
and
Marquis,
mountain rocks were
I
sent
will
flying.
let Chu Li live
A
after half
petrified
an hour.
body that was like
At
a
this
mountain
point,
and river
Ning
revived.
Chen changed the topic
8
and
huge
said
heads
coldly,
appeared, and
of
they
course,
had the
if you
faces
don't
of
agree,
infants.
you can
4
wait
were
to
male
collect
and
Chu
4 were
Li's
female.
corpse.
It
In
was
the
extremely
current situation,
terrifying.
you don't
the
have
9
any
neonates
chance
had
to save
awakened.
him.
Other than
Yan
the one
Jiang's
that had died in the
kept
heavenly
changing.
flame,
He glanced
the
at
other
Rong
8 had
Lu
all
and
awakened.
hesitated for a
On
moment
a strange
before
mountain,
transmitting.
the 9 neonates
Rong Lu,
shrieked.
hold on
The
for
4
an hour.
female babies
I'll be
opened
back
their
soon.
mouths and spat
After
out
that,
scarlet
Yan
flames
Jiang
at the
looked
black
back
robed
at the young
figure
man
in front of him and
A
said
mere
coldly,
beast dares to provoke
Ji
me.
Ming Marquis,
Bai Jiang
remember your
snorted
oath.
and waved his
You
hand.
know the price of
The
breaking
black
an
aura
oath.
gathered in front
I
of
know
him,
that
that better
blocking
than you,
the scarlet flames.
Minchin said indifferently.
The 9 neonate was
Bai
horrified.
Jiang snorted coldly.
The 4 male babies
the black
opened their mouths
and
at the same
disappeared.
time.
With
Black
the departure
water
of their
poured out,
allies,
bringing with
the
it a
situation
terrifying
at
poison.
Ronglu became
Heaven's
even
tears.
more disadvantageous.
Bai Jiang clenched his
Sabers
fists,
and swords
and
trapped
an
the
ancient sword
Ronglu.
appeared in his hand.
Green blood flowed about, strange and unordinary. When the sword appeared, the wind and clouds changed. It parted the mystic water and chopped off the heads of the 3 boys. With 3 loud bangs, the heads fell to the ground, causing dust and sand to fill the sky. The gushing blood dyed the heavenly tears of jade blood red. Blood rain fell from the sky, poignant and beautiful. Absolute suppression. There was no doubt about it. Jiao Ying, who had hidden for tens of thousands of years, could not escape the fate of being slaughtered in the end. The cries of an infant resounded through Alienation Mountain. It was so sorrowful, but it was completely useless. The bloody tears of heaven was sharp and merciless. It drew a cold, murderous light as heads fell one after another. In front of the powerful head of the martial crown, the nine-headed neonate, that had lived for tens of thousands of years, did not have much ability to resist. It walked step by step into the road to the underworld. The strength of humans would forever be the nightmare of other living beings. Even if other living beings cultivated bitterly for thousands, or even tens of thousands of years, they would still be unable to achieve the same level of strength as humans. Blood flowed out of the devastated Alienation Mountain, dyeing half of the mountain red. The nine-headed neonate fell into a pool of blood, no longer making a sound. Bai Jiang raised his hand. A black and red ball of light flew out of the nine-headed neonate and slowly fell. Not far away, Li Luo appeared. Seeing this scene, his eyes narrowed. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and grabbed the falling ball of light. Bai Jiang's eyes turned cold. His feet moved and blocked in front of him. Heaven's tears of heaven slashed down, filling the sky with green blood light. Li Luo twisted his body and avoided the sword light. He wanted to grab the ball of light again, but it was already too late. Do you really think I am not prepared at all? Bai Jiang waved his hand and put away the origin of the nine-headed neonate. He looked at the person in front of him and said coldly, such an unfamiliar expert had suddenly appeared in the world, and he was even related to the Jiming Marquis. How could he not be on guard? Since it is like this, then let me see how much you have improved. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Luo's body moved, his blade unsheathed. The beauty of his blade shocked the heavens and earth. It was a completely unfamiliar martial art. His blade was slow, but it was fast, causing people's minds to be in chaos. Bai Jiang turned over his palm to block the blade. With a kung sound, the black aura scattered in all directions. Bai Jiang's crimson blood tears streaked across the sky, dazzling the eyes with green light. Li Luo was as immovable as a mountain. His sword finger shook the heavens, and with a bang, a huge crack appeared between the two of them. The two experts who were the closest to the third innate calamity in the world met once more at northern Meng's Xuanli Mountain. Saber light and sword light constantly clashed. Life and death only existed in an instant. Estrangement Mountain, which was already riddled with holes, suffered another calamity. Large chunks of rock collapsed and fell down. The terror of the cultivators on the peak was on full display at this moment. At the same time, to the east of the Grand Xia, thousands of miles of wilderness, Madame Luofei had just crossed her fifth tribulation and was now facing the greatest tribulation of her life. Not long after the fifth tribulation passed, the great tribulation of the three disasters arrived. The Eternal Night Sect girl was gradually running out of strength and was now surrounded by perils. As the ghost palanquin arrived, a red-clothed knowing destiny stepped out. As he looked at Luofei in the Great Tribulation, he frowned. What do we do? Meng Xuanji asked with a dignified expression. Heavenly tribulation couldn't be interfered with. Otherwise the one who did would attract a heavenly tribulation of the same level, or even higher. She only knew that the man beside her had once blocked heavenly tribulation. But in this situation, Ningchen frowned, a light constantly jumping in his eyes. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to block the great tribulation of the three disasters. Let's go back, Ningchen calmly said. He turned and entered the palanquin. The ghost palanquin sped away, rushing towards the Marquis mansion. Within the Marquis mansion, within a stone room, Ningchen walked over. He looked at the figure trapped beneath the Solomon sword and said, Something has happened to Luofei. In Milky Flower Plains only you can save her. Beneath the Buddhist sword, the demonic cultivator opened his eyes. He coldly said, You should know what will happen to you if you release me. Ningchen didn't answer. He glanced at Bodhi behind him and calmly said, Senior, I'll have to trouble you. Have you thought this through? Bodhi sternly asked. Ningchen nodded. Right now, no accidents could happen to his alliance with the Eternal Night Church Master. He had promised Luofei's safety, so he had to keep his word. Bodhi sighed and didn't say anything else. He twisted his fingers, and the Solomon sword returned to its scabbard. The stone room's seal dissipated. The demonic cultivator moved, his demonic might shaking the heavens. Bodhi took a step forward and struck out with a palm, blocking the demonic cultivator's palm. This palm can be considered a greeting. Cherish your last moments, my good friend. The cold voice didn't contain the slightest emotion. The demonic cultivator passed by. Calling him a good friend was even more ironic. The demonic cultivator waved his hand, and the demonic sword suppressed beneath the stone room flew out. In the next moment, the demonic chi scattered, and the demonic cultivator vanished from sight. I hope you won't regret today's decision in the future. Bodhi looked at the departing demonic cultivator with a dignified expression. Even in the homeland of Western Buddhism, this person was an absolute chosen of heaven. If such a person were to fall into the demonic path, the calamity he would bring about would be unimaginable. East of the Grand Xia, above the milky flower plains, the demonic chi condensed. His robes fluttered in the wind as he walked step by step into the three calamities. Within the tribulation sea, Luofei vomited a mouthful of blood and staggered. She had already reached her limit. It's you. When Luofei saw the figure walking over, her consciousness relaxed and she directly fainted. The demonic cultivator caught her falling figure. With a slash of his sword, he cut apart the karmic flames surging towards him and walked out. The heavens sensed this and their fury soared. The formless karmic flames transformed into tangible black flames that could burn the heavens and boil the seas. Demonic sword, bury the heavens. The demonic sword moved, and the demonic chi surged. Layers of sword chi appeared, and soared into the heavens. The bury the heavens sword slashed down from the 9 heavens. Rumbling sounds rang out from the horizon. Karmic flames and demonic chi collided. The sky changed color, and a heavy pressure fell down, causing the wasteland within 100 miles to violently sway. The demonic cultivator resisted the heavens, and reached the most white-hot stage. With his sword in hand, the karmic flames that filled the sky found it difficult to descend. Heavy demonic essence rippled between the heavens and earth. Endless karmic flames spread throughout the world. At this moment, even the void began to burn. At the same time, an intense battle had already continued for an unknown period of time. With the power of the Nether King supporting him, Bai Zhang's cultivation wasn't weaker than anyone else's. With his sword in hand, he was extremely powerful. On the other hand, Li Luo was only an avatar. In the end, his strength was inferior to his main body. Because of this, he wasn't able to gain the upper hand. Saber and sword slashed across each other, causing a bloody light to shine. On the other side, faint traces of black energy began to scatter from the wound. Blue Blood Heaven Tears was one of the most famous swords of the divine religion, on par with the demon sword Samsara. In Bai Zhang's hands, its power was even more terrifying. Retreat! Seeing that Bai Zhang was no longer the same as before, Li Luo didn't want to continue fighting. He pushed away Bai Zhang with his saber, and quickly retreated from the battle. Bai Zhang coldly snorted and didn't chase after him. The difference in strength between them wasn't too great, so there wasn't much meaning in chasing after him. Li Luo appeared at the Marquis mansion. Looking at the red-robed figure waiting in the courtyard, his eyes narrowed. It really was an avatar. Where had this brat's main body run off to? Lord Religion Master, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Ningchen said. What is it? As his voice fell, Li Luo suddenly frowned. He swept his spiritual sense around and asked, Where is Luofei? She's crossing tribulation. She should be back soon. Ningchen replied. Before his voice fell, a devilish mist descended from the void. A white-haired figure in black robes walked out, holding the unconscious Luofei in her arms. With a wave of her hand, she flew down and landed in the Marquis mansion. Li Luo caught Luofei. Looking at the figure standing in the air, a light flashed in his eyes. I've rescued her. I look forward to seeing her again. I hope your sword doesn't disappoint me. The devilish mist dispersed and the demonic cultivator left. The skies above the Marquis mansion returned to calm. However, the hearts of those present grew even heavier. Miss Ruoshi, I'll have to trouble you. Li Luo carried Luofei into the room. He looked at the woman standing behind Ning Chun and sternly said, This is what Ruoshi should do. Ruoshi softly replied, Boy, if you don't cherish such a good girl, it'll be too late to regret it in the future. Li Luo glanced at the young man in front of Ruoshi, his expression unprecedentedly solemn. Chapter 359. The cold autumn wind blew in the north. The ghost palanquin drove out of the Heaven's Gate and headed towards the northern Meng imperial court. On the palanquin, opposite Meng Xuanji, the red-robed Marquis Jiming closed his eyes. The drowsiness from not having rested for days flooded him. After all, the doppelganger was not as good as the main body. It had not reached the Khanate realm and could not hold on for long. When the moon was high up in the sky, Ningchen walked out of the palanquin on the alienated mountain. Looking at the collapsed mountain, his eyes flickered. The river that stretched for hundreds of miles was destroyed by the powerful power of the underworld king. The river had collapsed and the water from the source washed over the broken mountain. Meng Xuanji followed behind him quietly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with unconcealable shock. No matter how many times she felt it, this kind of power that surpassed the mortal level would make people feel despair. The power of the underworld king was already so terrifying with the help of Bai Jiang. If the underworld king himself came, there would be no hope for the world. As they walked, Ningchen suddenly stopped. He looked at the girl behind him and said, "Do you hear something?" Meng Xuanji came back to her senses and spread out her spiritual consciousness. She nodded and said, "It's in the west. It's very weak." Ningchen changed his direction and walked towards the west. At a section where the river stopped flowing, there was a blurry human-shaped watery light that was constantly trembling. The mournful cries sounded like the weeping of a woman. The river was about to run out. The blurred water figure was getting weaker and weaker. The water demon that was shattered by Bai Jiang was about to disappear. Ningchen looked at the water demon before him and sighed softly in his heart. This was already the second time they met. The first time he spared her life. He didn't expect that this time, the miracle of life in this world wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. The water demon seemed to recognize the human in front of her. Her illusory body knelt down and begged. She was instinctively afraid of death. Even demons that had just gained intelligence were no exception. To save or not to save, it was often a matter of a strong person's thoughts. To the water demon, the human in front of her was undoubtedly a strong person. But to Ningchen, whether he saved or not did not matter much. It was just a matter of whether he was willing to lift his hand. The cruelty of the human world was vividly displayed at this moment. In the end, for some unknown reason, Ningchen still made a move. He lifted his right hand, and a drop of blood dripped down from his finger, fusing into the water monster's body. In an instant, the powerful vitality of the phoenix blood erupted and quickly gathered the water monster's body that was about to dissipate. "Miss Meng," Ningchen said. Meng Xuanji nodded. With a wave of her hand, the golden feather centipede flew out, leaving a dazzling streak of golden light in the sky. Amidst the rumbling sounds of breaking, a several thousand-foot-long ravine appeared on Alienation Mountain, reconnecting the destroyed river channel. At the source of the great river, the water flowed down along the newly opened channel downstream. "Let's go," Ningchen called out, then continued walking towards the depths of Alienation Mountain. Meng Xuanji followed him. Before she left, she glanced at the water demons that had gathered together and left without looking back. Behind him, the water demon knelt down and thanked him. Her shrill voice sounded very pleasant to the ear. Perhaps many years later, neither of them would remember that they had saved a dying aquatic spirit creature back in Estrangement Mountain. However, that was a small favor, but to that aquatic spirit creature, it was indeed a memory and a favor that she would never forget for the rest of her life. In the depths of Alienation Mountain, the remnants of the great battle could still be seen clearly. His red robes danced in the wind. Ningchen looked at the tragic aftermath of the battle and walked step by step on the pool of blood. The nine-headed snakelet was dead. Its entire body had been cut into dozens of pieces. The black-red ball of light that Li Luo had mentioned should be the source of the nine-headed snakelet. Based on this, it was very likely that the source of the eight-headed snakelet was the source of the eight-headed snakelet. From the looks of it, the descent of the seven absolutes heavens required these legendary beasts to be part of the process. Since the conditions for the advent of the underworld king had been determined, then Bai Zhang's role would end here. The next step was very clear. Kill Bai Zhang and buy time. Although the Underworld King could increase a person's strength, there should be a limit. Getting rid of Bai Zhang was the most effective way to delay the advent of the Underworld King. 15 minutes later, the ghost palanquin left Alienation Mountain and rushed toward Heavenly Lake. Bai Zhang's current strength was not weaker than the Eternal Night Hierarchs. It would not be easy to get rid of him. He had to gather as much power as possible. This was also his main goal. Heavenly Lake was filled with a cold aura. There was no one there. The ghost palanquin stopped and Ningchen walked out. Just as he was about to go forward, a sword blocked his path. Jiming Marquis, you've come to the wrong place, said Si Mingjian calmly as he looked at the red-robed youth. I've come to pay a visit to the Golden Staff Imperial Tutor, said Ningchen sincerely. Master hasn't returned yet, said Si Mingjian. Ningchen narrowed his eyes. Hasn't returned yet? Could the Golden Staff Imperial Tutor still be in the Four Extremities realm? Many thanks. Ningchen thanked him and turned to enter the palanquin, leaving with it. There was no need for Si Mingjian to lie. The Golden Staff Imperial Tutor should still be in the Four Extremities realm. This old man was truly obsessed with the phoenix blood. Ningchen had just returned to the Marquis Manor when he received a secret report. Chu Li had awakened and had appeared on the western battlefield to help the Evernight army block the advance of the Three Dynasties. Sect Master, take a look for yourself. Ningchen handed over the secret report with a cold glint in his eyes. Li Luo sighed heavily after reading the report. Although he had a good relationship with Chu Li, she was still one of the three martial crowns. Her loyalty to the Nether King was not something anyone could change. He had originally thought that Chu Li would be able to avoid a direct confrontation by keeping her unconscious, but she had still awakened. It seemed the Nether King's power to descend upon the Divine Continent was growing stronger and stronger. Even the restrictions he and the Jiming Marquis had set up together were unable to block it. I will personally deal with Chu Li's matter. You cannot attack her. That is also my bottom line, said Li Luo. Ningchen narrowed his eyes. A dangerous aura pulsed within them, but it soon disappeared. Sect Master, I don't wish to see Chu Li become a second Bai Zhang, said Ningchen slowly. They had finally gained the upper hand in the war against the Eternal Night cult. If a second Bai Zhang were to appear, the situation would immediately reverse. Most importantly, the matter of stopping the Nether King's descent was imminent. They could not afford any more variables. Li Luo did not wish to harm their relationship on this matter, so he changed the topic. How did this trip go? Did you manage to invite the Golden Staff Imperial Tutor? No. Ningchen shook his head. The Golden Staff Imperial Tutor has yet to return from the Four Extremities realm. We can't count on him for the time being. How about we switch to the Abbot of the Crossing, Temple? He's too slow. It's not suitable. Li Luo immediately rejected. The Buddha in the mortal world could resist, but he was too slow. If they wanted to trap Bai Zhang, this would become a loophole. What about your main body? When will it return? Asked Li Luo with a frown. I'm not sure, but it should take a few more days. There's no time to wait, replied Ningchen. Report. At this moment, another urgent report came from outside the Marquis' Manor's backyard. A red-clothed guard from the Supreme Court knelt outside the courtyard with an urgent secret report in his hand. Ningchen's eyes flickered. With a wave of his hand, the secret report flew into his hand. After reading it, Knowing Destiny's expression immediately darkened. The secret report came from the spy he had planted in Ascension Valley. The content was not complicated. Bai Zhang had gone to the Four Extremities realm through a spatial passage. After the master of the Four Extremities realm and Xianji were defeated, he had specially borrowed a Xiantian expert from the brave Marquis and hidden outside Ascension Valley. He had originally wanted to guard against the Four Extremities realm, but he had not expected to be used today. The black-clothed expert from the Three Disasters realm was undoubtedly Bai Zhang. This time it was troublesome. Bai Zhang's purpose in going to the Four Extremities realm was obvious. The Eternal Night cult had a short alliance with the master of the Four Extremities realm, so his understanding of the Four Extremities realm was no less than Ning Chen's. The divine continent had desolate beasts, but so did the Four Extremities realm. Their whereabouts were even clearer. The phoenix of Fengqi Mountain was already a secret that everyone knew. Sect Master, we have to go to the Four Extremities realm, said Ning Chen gravely as he handed over the secret report. Li Luo's expression also changed when he saw the report. They had only been concerned with the situation in the divine continent and had neglected the Four Extremities realm. We can't wait any longer. Let's move out immediately, said Li Luo. The phoenix's level was different from Jiuying and Octahead. If Bai Jiang obtained it, the Nether King's descent would very likely become a reality. At that time, it would be too late. Fortunately, there was a chaotic flow of space at the end of the passage between the divine continent and the Four Extremities realm. It could buy them some time. Now it was a competition to see who was faster. Miss Meng, I'll leave the safety of the Marquis estate to you, said Ning Chen as he walked in front of Meng Xuanji. Meng Xuanji frowned and transmitted. Don't you need me to go with you? Ning Chen shook his head and transmitted back. There's no need. With Senior Sword Bodhi here, there's no need to worry about my safety. I'll leave a letter for the Western battlefield. If Chu Li attacks again, I hope Miss Meng can cooperate with Senior Marquis Triumph to capture him. However, don't take his life for now. Meng Xuanji nodded. Ning Chen returned to his study and wrote a letter. He placed it under his imperial seal, and then walked out of the study. Seeing Li Luo and Sword Bodhi waiting outside, he said, "Let's go." The three of them immediately moved, heading towards Ascension Valley in the east of the Grand Xia. At the same time, a black-robed figure walked through the chaotic flow of space below the Four Extremities realm. A black aura surged, and the unique pressure of the Nether King spread out in waves. His speed was unbelievable. Half a day later, the three figures also appeared in the chaotic flow of space. Sword Bodhi's Saros staff shone with a golden light as he protected the red-robed youth beside him. Li Luo circulated her body, and powerful true essence overflowed, increasing her speed as much as possible. No one dared to be careless in this battle of speed. Although the Phoenix had the fastest speed, no one knew if it could avoid this calamity when facing Bai Jiang, who had the power of the Nether King. No matter what, the Nether King could not descend. Otherwise, all hope would be completely destroyed. In the end, it was impossible for humans to defeat gods. The disaster 30,000 years ago was a bloody lesson. Chapter 360. Time flew by outside the chaotic streams of space. Within the chaotic streams of space, time stagnated and was difficult to sense. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. Bai Jiang, who had entered the chaotic streams of space first, was still one step ahead of everyone else. He appeared in the southeastern region of the Four Extremes. At the intersection of the western and southern borders, outside the 100,000 Great Mountains, Bai Jiang sped over without stopping at all and rushed into the mountain range. In the depths of the mountain range, a blood-red maple forest appeared. The legendary Phoenix Perch Mountain was right in front of him. Bai Jiang withdrew his aura and descended from the sky. Phoenixes were different from other vicious beasts. They controlled the speed of heaven and earth. Wanting to obtain a phoenix origin wasn't easy. Even he had to be careful. Just as Bai Jiang arrived at Phoenix Perch Mountain, Li Luo and the other two also walked out of the chaotic streams of space and appeared in the northwestern region of the Four Extremes. Ning Chen confirmed their position and immediately brought the two of them to the 100,000 Mountains. At Phoenix Perch Mountain, a pair of phoenixes cried out and flames surged. In front of the phoenixes was a miserable figure holding a golden staff. He had already fought with the two phoenixes for several days. However, just like before, it was difficult for him to win. Phoenix flames burned the sky, creating a beautiful scene. The golden staff imperial teacher blocked with his staff, but he was forced back several steps. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Although he wasn't heavily injured, he was still in pain. Just as the man and the two phoenixes were fighting, a black aura rapidly spread out in the battlefield. A black-robed figure walked over with a powerful pressure, shocking everyone. How about we work together? After killing the phoenixes, We'll split the benefits equally, said Bai Jiang calmly. The Golden Staff Imperial Teacher's heart sank. He coldly said, "No need. We'll fight for it with our own ability." The person in front of him was stronger than the previous master of the four extremes. He wasn't stupid enough to ask a tiger for its skin. Bai Jiang sneered and no longer paid attention to him. He waved his hand, and the blood-jade tears heavens appeared. With a slash of his sword, the phoenix flames rapidly scattered. The phoenixes sensed the strength of the human in front of them and cried out. The flames around them turned from red to deep blue and crazily surged out. A pointless struggle. Bai Jiang flipped his left palm, and the power of the Nether King surged out of his body. A heavy pressure reverberated through heaven and earth. The Phoenix Truefire couldn't approach him at all. A black figure flashed past. Green blood tears, green light illuminated the world. The instant the sword appeared, the space trembled. 100 zhang-long ravines split open. The two phoenixes hurriedly dodged, but their enormous bodies couldn't completely dodge. Blood gushed out. A terrifying sword wound appeared on one of the phoenix's abdomen, so deep that bone could be seen. The Golden Staff Imperial Preceptor's eyes flickered. His figure flashed rapidly, wanting to collect the phoenix blood that was spilling out. Just as he was about to do so, the phoenix blood that was gushing out suddenly burst into flames. In the blink of an eye, it dissipated into nothingness. Fuck off. Seeing that the Golden Staff Imperial Tutor was in the way, Bai Jiang's eyes turned cold. He slashed out with his sword, and a blue blood mark tore through space and reached the Imperial Tutor's chest. The Golden Staff Imperial Advisor's heart trembled violently. He waved his golden staff to block the sword light. With a loud bang, the Golden Staff Imperial Preceptor was sent flying more than 30 meters away. Blood continuously flowed from his hands. With just one move, he had already suffered serious injuries. The absolute suppression of strength did not allow the weak to be on the same path. The Golden Staff Imperial Advisor suppressed his anger and retreated from the battle. He knew very well that he had no chance of winning against such a strong opponent. Suddenly, the Golden Staff Imperial Preceptor's eyes shook. He looked to the north. Why had that brat returned? In the distance, Ning Chun was holding the Golden Staff Imperial Preceptor's golden staff. Imperial Preceptor had given him back then. He was constantly pouring his true essence into it, trying to contact the latter. Soon, the Golden Staff Imperial Preceptor responded to Ning Chun's call by releasing his aura. He really is there. Ning Chun looked in the direction of the 100,000 mountains. Was this old man really planning to deal with the two phoenixes by himself? On Phoenix Perch Mountain, Bai Jiang was facing the two phoenixes. The overwhelming battle had caused the two phoenixes' injuries to become more and more serious. The wounds that had been cut by the Crimson Blood Heaven's tears still had some remnant energy that prevented them from recovering. The two phoenixes cried out in grief. They had no choice but to abandon their resting place and quickly rush out of the 100,000 mountains. You want to escape? Do you think it's that easy? Bai Jiang snorted coldly. He opened his hands and black chains appeared. They trapped the sky and locked down the earth, forming a huge net that sealed off the surrounding area. Within the crisscrossing black chains, the two phoenixes' path was blocked. Phoenix cries resounded throughout the world. It was the end of the phoenixes, and it was difficult to find a way out. At this moment, one of the phoenixes let out a cry and burned its own body, using its flame of life to open a path for the other phoenixes to escape. The golden flames were unstoppable. Even the black chains could not stop them. They shattered one after another, and a path appeared in front of them. It was the only path that led to hope. The other phoenix's eyes were filled with grief. It could feel its companion's vitality rapidly declining. It cried out in grief, shaking heaven and earth. None of you can escape. Bai Jiang's figure shot out. Crimson Blood Heaven's tears tore through the void and slashed at the two phoenixes. One of the phoenixes that had burned its own life spread its wings and blocked the Crimson Blood Heaven's tears. It cried out, urging its companion to escape. With a loud bang, the Crimson Blood Heaven's tears gushed out. In the next moment, the golden flame spread. In the final moments of its life, it wanted to drag the humans in front of it to the Yellow Springs. The crimson blood heaven's tears cut open the phoenix's body. Bai Jiang raised his hand and stabbed it into the phoenix's chest. In front of absolute power, any struggle was powerless. Its final cry was filled with endless regret and resentment. Its flame of life burned away all traces of the phoenix's existence, but it was unable to do anything to the humans within. After being trapped for 10,000 years, and then suffering a great calamity, the phoenix's lives had been filled with ups and downs. Seeing its companion die, the other phoenix was filled with grief and fury. Just as it was about to charge out, the black chains reconnected, sealing its path. I said none of you can escape. Bai Jiang's figure flickered, and he appeared on top of the phoenixes. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he slammed his palm into the phoenix's chest. With a bang, the phoenixes were heavily injured. They fell from the sky and smashed into the ground, kicking up dust. Bai Jiang followed, slashing down with his sword, wanting to end the phoenixes' lives. But at this moment the battle changed. The Suo Luo sword slashed through the chains and blocked the crimson blood heaven. The two swords collided, and sword chi flew everywhere. Then 4 figures walked over. Ning Chen looked at the destroyed phoenix perch mountain, and his heart sank. Had they still come too late? Marquis Jiming, you actually didn't die. Bai Jiang couldn't hide his killing intent as he looked at the red-robed youth. Before I send you to hell, of course I'll live well, said Ning Chen calmly. Their Daos were different, and they didn't want to talk too much. 2 figures shot out from Ning Chen's side. Sword and saber light cut through the darkness as they shot toward Bai Jiang. Bai Jiang raised his sword to block, his Nether King aura reaching its peak. Sword and saber light collided in the blink of an eye, shaking the heavens. The battle instantly reached a white-hot level. Sword and saber intersected, and life and death were only a hair's breadth away. Jiming hadn't attacked yet, and Bai Jiang had many misgivings when he attacked. Adding on the fact that he was fighting 1 against 2, it was difficult for him to gain the upper hand. Blue blood tears heaven's tears kept ringing, dancing in the sword and saber light. Rays of killing intent scattered in all directions, creating bottomless ravines on the ground. On Phoenix Perch Mountain, the parasol tree fell, unable to withstand the waves of the battle. A faint light flashed through the dying phoenix's eyes. There was sadness, hatred, and relief. After hiding for tens of thousands of years, it finally didn't have to hide anymore. The mournful cry was a call to its companions. Wait for me on the road to the underworld. The next moment, golden flames burned around the phoenix. The phoenix was proud all its life. Even if it died, it wouldn't let a human desecrate its body. Looking at the phoenix in the golden flames, Ning Chen's eyes showed a trace of sadness. They had once fought side by side, and he didn't expect that they would meet again at the moment of life and death. The phoenix origin flew out, and flew toward the only human recognized by the phoenix. Together with the phoenix origin, it entered Ning Chen's body with the last trust of its life. In the battle, Bai Jiang's expression changed slightly. He pushed away the Bodhi in front of him with his sword, and was about to take the phoenix origin. However, the saber had already arrived and blocked his path. Farewell, human. The phoenix's last consciousness gradually dissipated. Its life was over. At this moment, a golden pillar of light shot into the sky. All the Xiantian experts in the 4 extremes looked toward Phoenix Perch Mountain. What was going on? Bai Jiang's pupil shrank. Xiantian tribulation? How could it be? Marquis Jiming was already a Xiantian expert. How could such a phenomenon appear again? With the phoenix origin in his body, his clone rushed to the Xiantian realm. Ning Chen wanted to use the Chaos Scroll to hide his aura, but it was too late. He focused on dealing with the Sky Demon tribulation. Senior Golden Staff, please protect me. I'll be eternally grateful. Ning Chen glanced at the Golden Staff Imperial Tutor, and said calmly. At this time, the Golden Staff Imperial Tutor also recovered from his shock. His expression changed again and again, but he still nodded and agreed to the former's request. Black demonic chi rushed down from the golden pillar of light. At the same time, a sea of fire burned in the sky, illuminating the sun. 2 tribulations in the sky rose endlessly on Phoenix Perch Mountain. The terrifying power shocked the entire 4 extremes. Retreat! As the heavenly fire fell, Everyone in the battle quickly retreated. They didn't want to be affected by the Xiantian tribulation. There was a gap in the siege. Bai Jiang took the opportunity to swing his sword. A green sword light flashed and swept toward Ning Chen. The golden staff, Imperial Tutor's golden staff, rang. The staff gathered energy and blocked the sword light. A pool of blood spilled on the ground. The golden staff Imperial Tutor was heavily injured again. He looked back at the young man who was going through the tribulation. His eyes darkened. This time, he hoped he made the right decision. The two experts who came with this kid were not simple. Moreover, there was a big problem with this kid's body. The golden staff Imperial Tutor was a smart man. He knew what was best for him. The Marquis Jiming was no longer the junior he could bully. Giving him a favor was the best choice. In the golden pillar of light, the sky demon heavenly fire burned Ning Chen. The cry of the phoenix resounded through the sky. An illusory phoenix shadow appeared behind Ning Chen. A strong power swept out. From the ghost palanquin behind, the purple gold Yama divine sword flew out and fell into Jiming's hand. The Yama divine sword was sharpened again. The heavy phoenix origin gathered on the sword. In an instant, the blood-red light shone brightly with a trace of dazzling gold. The moment the sword came out, it changed the wind and clouds, and created a sea of fire. Chapter 361. The heavenly fire opened and red clothes appeared. Ning Zhang's figure instantly appeared in the middle of the battle. His divine weapon appeared, and his sword pierced through the air. The sudden sword was so fast that no one could react to it. It was out of everyone's expectations. Before they could react, the sword had already entered their body. Ugh! The sword entered 3 inches and black qi gushed out. Bai Jiang endured the pain in his chest and sent out a palm strike. Vigorous True Yuan surged and pressed towards Ning Jiang. Bodhi condensed a seal and received the palm strike. The shockwaves shook the surroundings. In that instant, red clothes retreated, avoiding the shockwaves that scattered in all directions. Knowing destiny, Marquis, you've become weak. Bai Jiang suppressed the injury in his chest and looked at the red-clothed youth in front of him. It's enough to deal with you. Ning Chen's figure moved again. His sword cut through the wind and clouds. Red clothes left behind afterimages as he rushed forward again. Bai Jiang's pupils shrank. So fast. The speed in the blink of an eye exceeded the limit of the physical body. Traces of blood flowed out of Ning Chen's body. It was the backlash of the physical body, not being able to keep up with the speed. Knowing destiny had grasped the phoenix origin, and at the same time had inherited the phoenix extreme speed. However, the human body was not as strong as the phoenix body. Under the extreme speed that exceeded one's cultivation, one had to bear the backlash. The tip of the sword drew a brilliant red light across Fengqi Mountain. It was so fast that it was shocking. Seeing this, Bodhi and Li Luo joined forces to suppress Bai Jiang's Nether King power. Together with knowing destiny, they killed Wu Guan. 2 blocked the attack, and 1 took the life. The 3 cooperated in an orderly manner. Bai Jiang's situation immediately became dangerous. The phoenix body's cultivation foundation was not as good as the main body's. It could not take the Nether King's power head-on. However, with the protection of the 2, there was no need to worry about the rear. A purple gold sword shone brightly with bloody light. The tip of the sword was endless. Bai Jiang's move was suppressed. Red clothes swept past and blood splashed out, dyeing the maple leaves in the sky red. 3 against 1, the strongest combination. There was no gap between them. The sword light flowed, and the road to the underworld appeared. Ugh! Suddenly, the Nether King's sword pierced through Bai Jiang's body. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. His aura shook violently, and the black light kept extinguishing. Nether descends heaven's tears. Suffering another heavy blow, Bai Jiang took half a step back. At the moment of life and death, a dark aura as heavy as a bottomless abyss gushed out. Suddenly, the heavens and earth lost their balance, and the whole Fengqi Mountain shook. A terrifying pressure descended. The Nether King opened his eyes, and his aura changed. His dark and cold eyes were devoid of any human emotions. Just a glance was enough to cause the 3 people in front of him to feel as if they had been severely injured. Their hearts throbbed violently. Humans stepped back. His words were calm and emotionless. A terrifying aura spread out, and the three of them were immediately sent flying. Their blood dyed the sand red. Strong, indescribably strong. The Nether King moved, a black light flashed, instantly appearing in front of Li Luo. With a flip of his palm, an endless amount of black chi gathered. With a bang, heaven and earth trembled. Li Luo's eyes narrowed as he raised his saber to block the attack. However, a loud bang was heard as the saber shattered into pieces. A red and green figure flew out, blood splattering all over the sky. Next you, Nether King Erha raised his hand. Raging winds and raging mists surged with divine might, sweeping towards Bodhi, who was standing not far away. Jian Bodhi's expression froze. Buddhist light flickered, and his Buddhist energy soared to meet the Nether King's divine might. With a loud bang, Bodhi was forced back a dozen steps. Blood splashed out of his mouth, dyeing his clothes red. In just a breath's time, the situation had rapidly reversed. The Nether King who had borrowed Bai Zhang's body to descend was shockingly powerful. Retreat! Ningchen recovered and suppressed his shock. His red robes flickered as he brought the heavily injured Li Luo and Jian Bodhi away. Outside the battle, the Golden Staff Imperial Teacher didn't dare stay for even half a moment. His feet moved and he also left. Looking at the four of them leaving, the Nether King's eyes flashed with a cold light. In the next moment, his terrifying pressure scattered, and he returned to his original appearance. Many thanks for saving us, Master. Bai Jiang suppressed his injuries and respectfully said, Your body is no longer capable of withstanding my power. Quickly bring back the Phoenix origin, and prepare the final extreme sky formation. The Nether King's voice echoed between heaven and earth. Yes, replied Bai Jiang. To the southwest of the 100,000 mountains, Ningchen appeared with the heavily injured Jian Bodhi and Li Luo. The Golden Staff Imperial Teacher followed behind them. Because he had received several of Bai Zhang's attacks, his injuries weren't light. Seniors, please focus on healing your injuries. Junior will stand guard on the side, said Ningchen. Li Luo and Jian Bodhi nodded. They didn't say anything, and immediately sat down to focus on healing. Although the Golden Staff Imperial Teacher had many questions, he knew now wasn't the time to ask. He walked to the side and first circulated his energy to suppress his injuries. Ningchen looked in the direction of Phoenix Perch Mountain, his heart heavy. There had been too many variables in this battle. The final terrifying aura that had appeared was without a doubt the Nether King. All he could feel was one word, powerful. So powerful that it made him despair. In the end, the Phoenix origin had still ended up in Bai Zhang's hands. The Nether King's descent wouldn't be far off. How to stop it would be the biggest problem in the future. Ningchen closed his eyes, and blood chi soared around him. He used blood to refine his soul, notifying his main body of the danger. At the same time, in the Chizhou mountain range, within the Taotia's stomach, a white-robed figure trembled. She felt an intense pain in her divine sense, and suddenly opened her eyes. Seeing her awaken, Dao Kuei waved his hand, and the black and white swords protecting the Taiji Yin-Yang formation transformed into streams of light that returned to the zither. What is it? Asked Jiang Wangji. My clone gave me a warning. Something must have happened outside. Senior, I need to go out, said Ningchen gravely. Jiang Wangji frowned, but he didn't stop him. Be careful. You still haven't completely cultivated the life scroll's restrictions. Don't waste too much time. Also, your fifth tribulation should have arrived. Once you go out, do your best to suppress your tribulation. Otherwise, if the three calamities arrive, it will be extremely dangerous. Yes. Ningchen nodded. His figure flickered as he flew in the direction he had come from. Jiang Wangji plucked the zither, and a profound sound rang out. The Taotai opened its mouth, and a white light shot out and disappeared. Within the Grand Xia's imperial city, within the Marquis mansion, knowing destiny returned. After asking Meng Xuanji, his expression became serious. Where's Luofei? Is she awake? Asked Ningchen. She's awake. She's in her room, replied Meng Xuanji. Ningchen turned and walked out of the study. He went to Luofei's room and knocked on the door. Please enter. A woman's voice came from the room. Ningchen pushed open the door and entered. He looked at the woman in front of him and seriously said, Luofei, I want to see the Eternal Night Religion Master. Immediately, Luofei frowned. She stood up and said, "Let's go." A moment later, the two of them left the Marquis mansion and rushed west. Two people appeared in front of the Eternal Night God sect. Luofei took 2 steps forward and pressed a hand against the array formation. Suddenly, a white moonlight spread out, and an entrance to the array formation appeared. Ningchen followed her in. Just as he was about to continue, a blue spear light shot out. Luofei narrowed her eyes and her figure flashed. She flipped her palm to block the spear light. She said, "You go first. I'll block her." Ningchen nodded. His feet moved and he rushed forward. "Luofei, you really betrayed the God sect." Chu Li's expression was ugly as he angrily shouted. "I'm sorry." Luofei didn't explain. Moonlight flashed in her hand. This was the first time she had attacked since she stepped into the 3 disasters. Chu Li waved his spear to meet her. The blue spear light was swift and fierce, showing no mercy at all. As the two of them fought, Ningchen followed the path that Luofei had pointed out to him. They were running out of time, so they had to act as quickly as possible. The 3 great temples were already empty. In addition to Chu Li being blocked, the God sect's combat strength had temporarily entered a period of weakness. Ningchen moved faster and faster. Before the Deep King noticed him, he rushed towards the forbidden area in the north of the God sect. Northern Tomb, the tomb of the God sect's previous temple masters. Ningchen rushed over and cut open the layers of spells in front of him. Seeing the solemn stone tombs, he came to the newest one and said, "Religion Master, it's time." As soon as he finished his words, the earth rumbled and trembled. The next moment, the tomb made of huge stones collapsed. A handsome figure in black and red battle clothes walked out of the rubble. He glanced at the young man in front of him and said calmly, "Jiming Marquis, I finally found you." Time was tight. Ningchen didn't want to waste any more time. He quickly explained the situation and then asked, "Religion Master, what is your choice?" "I'll risk my life to accompany you," the Eternal Night Religion Master said. After getting an affirmative answer, Ningchen's expression became serious. He said, "Then please open the Central Spirit region." "Follow me." The Eternal Night Religion Master stepped forward. The Eternal Night Religion Master's appearance shocked everyone in the God sect. The patrolling guards couldn't hide the shock on their faces. They were in a dilemma and didn't know what to do. "Retreat." The Eternal Night Religion Master waved his hand, and a powerful aura spread out. The guards along the way were all pushed back by more than 10 zhang. Ningchen followed behind, his eyes flickering. Without a doubt, the Eternal Night Religion Master's original body was stronger than his doppelganger. However, their next opponent was the Deep King, who had surpassed the limits of human martial arts. No one could guarantee the result. This was different from any previous opponents. With the strength of the Nether King's level, no matter how many people went in, it would only increase the number of casualties. He and the Eternal Night Hierarch were the two with the strongest foundation in the Divine Great Land. If they couldn't resist, the others would only be sending themselves to their deaths. When they passed by the first shrine, Ningchen stopped. He looked at the shrine and said, "Can we take the Eternal Night Divine Scripture with us?" The Eternal Night Religion Master shook his head and said, "No. Once there is something wrong with the Divine Scripture, the Deep King will notice it immediately. Now destroying the Central Spirit region is more important. We will think of a way to take the Divine Scripture later." "Okay." Ningchen nodded and continued to walk forward. In the third shrine, 2 people walked over. The Eternal Night Religion Master stopped and said, "Let me borrow the divine weapon of the Deep King." Ningchen nodded and waved his right hand. The blood-colored demonic blade flew out and landed in the former's hand. The Eternal Night Religion Master held the demonic blade and activated his true yuan. A powerful pressure shook the shrine. The matrix in the shrine felt it, and many matrix patterns appeared, emitting dazzling light. The demonic blade slashed across, and the space trembled. A huge hole opened. It was pitch black and silent. The Eternal Night Sect Master and Ningchen walked in one after the other. The giant spatial ravine immediately closed up, and the formation patterns in the hall also disappeared. Peace was restored once more. Chapter 362. A cold and desolate space connected the divine continent and the Nether King's world. It was a desolate place with no signs of life. This dead world had been strengthened by generations of Sciention experts of the Eternal Night God sect, and it was gradually stabilizing. The Eternal Night sect leader and Ningchen hurried toward the smoke cloud divine dagger axe. They wanted to retrieve the divine weapon before the Nether King noticed. Bai Jiang had left, and Chuli was blocked. No one in the Eternal Night God sect could talk to the Nether King directly. This was the best opportunity for the two of them. They couldn't miss it. The two of them flew through the boundless space, their speed increasing. The smoke cloud divine dagger axe wasn't far from them. The Eternal Night sect leader's figure turned into a black and red light. Sui followed closely behind. She was highly focused and vigilant of her surroundings. "We're here." The Eternal Night Hierarch stopped in his tracks. Not far in front of him, a weapon appraisal platform could be vaguely seen amidst the dense fog. On the platform, a divine weapon stood upright, its powerful aura spreading out continuously. The smoke cloud divine dagger axe, the number one divine weapon of the Eternal Night God sect, finally appeared in front of them. The misty cloud divine spear has a mark left by the Lord of Hell. If you want to pull it out, the Lord of Hell will be alerted. I need 10 breaths of time. Are you sure you can block it? The Eternal Night Hierarch glanced at the young man beside him and asked in a deep voice. "We'll know after we try," said Ningchen gravely. I'll try my best. Be careful." The Eternal Night sect leader stepped into the fog and stood in front of the weapon appraisal platform. A black and red light rose around him. He reached out and grabbed the smoke cloud divine dagger axe. After a short moment of silence, a powerful repulsive force erupted from the smoke cloud divine dagger axe. A black aura surged, resisting the Eternal Night sect leader's power. At this moment, black clouds gathered in the sky, thunder rumbled, and a terrifying aura appeared. It was divine and heavy. As soon as it appeared, it made people feel an unprecedented pressure. "It's here." Ning Chen's expression became serious. Looking at the black light gathering in the sky, he clenched his right hand, and a green sparrow flew into his hand. "Human, we meet again." A huge demonic figure with black wings appeared in the black light. The Nether King's incarnation was not human, but a demonic figure. The terrifying pressure made people feel like thousands of mountains were pressing down on them. He really is as strong as a monster. Looking at the 10-meter-tall Nether King's demonic form, Ning Chen's heart sank. His body's energy surged, resisting the Nether King's power. In front of the appraisal platform, the Eternal Night Hierarch felt the arrival of the Nether King. He activated his true essence once more and tried his best to speed up the collection of the divine weapons. "Traitor, your choice has disappointed me." The demonic image spoke as the wings on its back flapped slowly. The next moment, demonic power gathered, and a vast aura swept out, rushing toward the Eternal Night Hierarch, who was standing in front of the weapon evaluation platform. Seeing this, Ningchen stepped on the water and instantly appeared in front of him. With a flip of his palm, endless cold air surged out. His palm met the demonic power head-on and blocked the life-threatening danger. With a hong sound, the ice and snow collapsed. Her white clothes were dyed red, and she retreated several steps. Dao Kuei had personally taught him the knowing destiny state. With the 4 scrolls of heaven, earth, life, and nothingness in his body, his foundation was unparalleled in the world. Although he had yet to pass the heavenly tribulation, his cultivation was actually not inferior to that of the 3 disasters. However, in the face of the limited power of the devil form of Pluto, he was defeated in just one move and suffered heavy injuries. The terrifying aftershock spread out in all directions of the central spirit region. The space shook violently and became extremely unstable. The man-made space of nothingness originally did not exist. It was only created to connect the divine prefecture and the world where the Nether King was. Although it had been strengthened by the Eternal Night Hierarch for generations and had become increasingly stable, there was still a limit to its endurance. Under the divine power of the Nether King, it showed signs of collapsing. The devil form of Pluto held back another 30% of its power. With a flap of its wings, It arrived in front of the knowing destiny state in an instant. With a stomp, a heavy aura fell from the sky along with the distorted space. The divine power came again. Ningchen shouted softly and activated his true essence to the limit. In an instant, snow fell from the sky and waves roared. He used all his strength to block the descending divine power. With a hong sound, the sky collapsed and thousands of waves scattered. Blood and chi kept rolling around Ningchen, and he retreated several steps. After the knowing destiny state retreated, the devil form of Pluto moved again. Its palm condensed demonic aura and slapped toward the mist. Ningchen endured his injuries and rushed forward. The blue sparrow condensed into frost, and a sword cut open the sky. The sword light cut open the demonic aura, and the aftermath was vast and mighty. The blue sparrow cried sadly, and the knowing destiny state splashed blood. Hierarch, if you still can't pull out the smoke cloud divine spear, you can prepare to collect my corpse. 10 breaths had passed. Ningchen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the terrifying devil form of Pluto in front of him. In front of the weapon appraisal platform, the Eternal Night Hierarch was surrounded by black and red blood lightning. On the smoke cloud divine spear, red lightning surged. With a hong sound, the divine weapon was pulled out, and the mist dispersed. The Eternal Night Hierarch, who had regained his weapon, broke through the limit and rushed into the third disaster. Where is Zi's soul? Seeing the former take back the divine spear, Ningchen asked seriously. The Eternal Night Hierarch spread out his spiritual consciousness and used the power of the smoke cloud divine spear to quickly search the entire central spirit region for Xia Zi's trapped soul. Southeast. The Eternal Night Hierarch said in a deep voice. Thank you. Ningchen waved his sword, and a cold light appeared. His body turned into a water shadow and rushed to the right. The Eternal Night Hierarch also waved his divine spear, and with a move that shocked the gods, he quickly retreated. The Nether King raised his hand, and the light of the spear dissipated. He flapped his wings and chased after the Eternal Night Hierarch. 3 figures flashed through the void. The devil form was unbelievably fast, and it was about to catch up in the blink of an eye. You save him. I'll block him. The Eternal Night Hierarch stopped and said, Be careful. Ningchen warned. He didn't say anything else, and continued to rush forward. Luali, you were the master of the divine prefecture. What a pity. The Nether King's devil form said coldly. Ha! The Eternal Night Hierarch chuckled and said indifferently, I'm not interested in a blood-washed master of the divine prefecture. Leave your gift to others. Foolish. The devil form snorted and flapped its wings. Black demonic aura surged out, and a terrifying aura descended once again. The Eternal Night Hierarch's expression became serious. He circulated his energy, and the smoke cloud divine spear spun like lightning. The divine weapon's brilliance slashed down and collided with the demonic aura. The Eternal Night Hierarch took 3 steps back, and the blood in his body surged violently. Not bad, the Nether King said indifferently. Normally, this is what I would say about others. The Eternal Night Hierarch raised his spear and charged into the sky. His true yuan connected heaven and earth, and his divine weapon gathered in the smoke cloud. He slashed at the Nether King's devil form. As the spear fell, the devil form flipped its palm and raised it into the sky. Rumbling sounds could be heard as spatial cracks appeared. The central spirit region, which had lost the support of the divine weapon, finally couldn't hold on and began to collapse. Back off. The Nether King flipped his palm, and the demonic aura surged. The Eternal Night Hierarch blocked the attack with his spear and retreated, his mouth red. On the right side of the battlefield, Ningchen finally arrived at the place where Xia Zi's soul was trapped. There were many prisons floating in the void, and all kinds of horrifying creatures appeared in front of him. Although most of their power had been sealed by the Nether King, the remaining pressure was still enough to shock people. Let me go, and I'll help you become the master of the world. Let me go, and I'll help you deal with the 7 absolute heavens. Demonic voices echoed in Ningchen's ears, but he didn't pay any attention to them. He directly arrived in front of Xia Zi's prison and slashed out with his sword, wanting to break the prison that trapped him. Good friend, you still came. said Xiazi as he opened his eyes. It was a familiar voice and a familiar warmth. Of the three souls, the only one that hadn't been completely demonized was still conscious. But because of that, the Nether King had suppressed it and prevented it from leaving. I'll take you away. The sword collided with the prison, but a loud explosion rang out. Black aura surged out, and he couldn't break it. It's useless. Every prison here is supported by the Nether King's power. You should quickly leave, said Xiazi. Cut the crap. It's already a mess outside. If you don't come out and help, I won't be able to hold on. Ningchen clenched his left hand, and remembrance appeared in his hand. His saber and sword moved together, and the four scrolls resonated with each other. A destructive aura circulated and crashed into the prison. The gradually unstable space violently distorted. Under the power of the void scroll, a flaw appeared in the indestructible prison. Fissures appeared, and it immediately collapsed. Ningchen went forward and supported Xiazi. The life scroll entered his body and stabilized his soul. He then turned into a ray of light and returned. Sect Master retreat. Ningchen had already rescued Xiazi, and he had already achieved his goal. He didn't stop fighting the Eternal Night Sect Master and quickly left. When the Eternal Night Sect Master heard the sound transmission, he waved his spear and instantly left. You want to leave? Wishful thinking. The Nether King's demonic image waved its hand to disperse the incoming attack. Its wings flapped, and a black light streaked across the sky. In just a few breaths' time, it once again blocked the two of them. A surging demonic aura surged out, and immediately separated, crushing the two of them. Ningchen and the Eternal Night Sect Master used their techniques to block, but they were heavily injured once again. Destroy this place. Ningchen steadied himself and said in a deep voice. Yes. The Eternal Night Sect Master nodded. The smoky cloud divine spear in his hand gathered his true essence. Suddenly lightning surged and clouds rolled. Ningchen used his techniques at the same time. His sword and saber hummed, and the void scroll was pushed to the peak. A destructive aura overflowed and rose rapidly. The two techniques converged and crashed into the top of the void. The central spirit region, which had just gone through a great battle, couldn't bear it anymore and quickly collapsed. The Nether King's demonic image couldn't stop it in time. Its eyes turned cold, and the demonic image collapsed. A black aura surged, and its true form was about to appear. An extremely terrifying aura rose, causing the divine prefecture to tremble. Go. After one move, the two of them quickly retreated, rushing toward the gap between the central spirit region and the divine prefecture. The divine spear was taken away, and the central spirit region that connected the two worlds collapsed. The hope of the Nether King's descent was about to be destroyed. However, hope was always too good, and reality was always cruel. In the black aura that filled the sky, the Nether King's true form was revealed. His back was facing the two of them, and his long black hair fluttered in the void. His face couldn't be seen clearly. With a flip of his hand, a powerful force surged out, passing through the endless space and forcefully pulling the two worlds that were about to separate. At the gap, the two of them who were leaving were shocked for the last time. In the next moment they disappeared. Chapter 363. Two figures appeared in the third divine temple of Eternal Night. They both vomited blood, dyeing the ground red. The terrifying Nether King, even in the central spirit region, where his strength was severely limited, was still unrivaled. His moves were extremely powerful and difficult to resist. The two of them were the strongest combination in the world, but they were still injured to this extent. One could imagine what kind of calamity would befall them if the Nether King truly descended. Luofei is still waiting outside. Let's leave quickly. Ningchen suppressed his injuries and said, The Eternal Night Hierarch nodded, put away his divine dagger axe and quickly left. The Nether King had pulled the two realms together, preventing them from completely separating. This way, the Nether King could borrow part of his power from the Dark Abyss to descend at any time. They couldn't stay here for long. Within the Eternal Night cult's great array, Luofei and Chuli's battle was still ongoing. In the moonlight, the fierce blue spear shadows showed no mercy. Every move was tricky and difficult to deal with. Luofei's body was surrounded by moonlight. The scroll of moon appeared in her hand, resisting the ruthless spear shadows. The surging pressure surged all around, making it difficult to determine the victor. Two figures appeared in the battle, just as they were about to join forces to restrain Chuli. A terrifying aura spread out from the depths of the Eternal Night cult. It was so heavy that it made it difficult for them to breathe. Let's go. The Eternal Night Hierarch's eyes narrowed. He flipped his palm and pushed Chuli back. The Nether King was about to appear. The three didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly left. Chuli steadied himself and looked at the departing black-red figures. Disappointment and anger flashed in his beautiful eyes. He had actually betrayed the Eternal Night cult. Grand Xia Imperial City, knowing Destiny Marquis Manor. After the three returned, Ningchen didn't stay and returned to Qizhou Mountain. The Eternal Night Hierarch was in seclusion to heal his injuries. Resisting the Nether King's demon image was more difficult than expected. Before the third calamity descended, he had to suppress his injuries as soon as possible. Luofei left with Ziyi's soul, accepting the mission of finding the demon body. Qizhou Mountain Range. Within the belly of the Taotai, the ancient zither vibrated. The black and white ancient sword flew out and opened the Dao Gate's Taiji Yang Great Array. Jiang Wangji looked at the seriously injured young man and said, "From now on, before the two-live scroll reaches equilibrium, you cannot go out again. You should learn to trust them." Okay. Ningchen nodded and agreed softly. At the same time, in the four extremities, Bai Jiang was preparing to return with Feng Yuan. Jian Bodi and Li Luo temporarily suppressed their injuries and chased after them. They were determined to stop Bai Jiang from returning to the Divine Land. In the four extreme holy lands, a red-clothed figure appeared. His appearance changed, and he turned into someone else. Luan Fengchen immediately sensed the arrival of an innate realm master. His figure flashed, and he arrived before the sacred ground. "Why have you come?" Luan Fengchen recognized this person and asked. "It's a long story. The twin phoenixes of Feng's Perch Mountain fell, and the phoenix origin was taken away by Bai Jiang." Ningchen quickly explained what happened recently. In the four extremes, the Holy Land's influence was hard to match. The most important thing now was to prevent Feng Yuan from being brought back to the Divine Land. With Luan Fengchen's help, it would be of great help. Hearing the former's words, Luan Fengchen nodded and said, "Come with me." Within the Holy Palace, a person was sitting cross-legged. Blood yuan surrounded him, and a powerful aura circulated around him. He was constantly trying to break through to the third calamity. After being chased by Jian Bodi for 100 years, their cultivations had also been stuck at the peak of the second calamity for 100 years. The third calamity was the final stage of the innate realm, and it was extremely difficult to break through. In the past 100 years, Rong Lu had tried several times, but he had never been able to take that crucial step. He needed an opportunity to break through. Back in the Jiming Marquis Manor, he had seen that opportunity. The Jiming Marquis Phoenix bloodline was truly powerful. Unfortunately, Jian Bodi had stopped him. Just at this moment, the Holy Palace's doors opened, and two red-clothed figures walked in. They were similar, but they were different. Rong Lu opened his eyes and frowned when he saw the unfamiliar youth beside Luan Fengchen. "Who is he?" asked Rong Lu. He had already warned them not to disturb his cultivation, unless it was an important period. For Luan Fengchen, the master of a holy land, to personally bring this person over was truly extraordinary. Xianing, a spy personally raised by Master in the early years. He's in charge of gathering information, and his speed is unmatched in the four extremities, introduced Luan Fengchen. "Oh!" Rong Lu narrowed his eyes and his figure flickered, grabbing at the person in front of him. His red robes flashed, and a dazzling red light streaked through the Holy Palace. He had already dodged several of Luan Feng's attacks. Rong Lu pulled back his hand, shock flashing through his eyes. "What speed? Why did you bring him here?" Rong Lu knew that Luan Fengchen wouldn't bring someone like this for no reason. "Xianing, you tell him," said Luan Fengchen calmly. Ningchen nodded and took a step forward, his expression grave. A battle broke out in Phoenix Perch. By the time I arrived, the two phoenixes had already fallen, and the phoenix origin had been taken away by a black-robed man. What? Ronglu's expression immediately changed. How was that possible? Phoenixes controlled the world's speed, and even 3 calamities experts would find it difficult to catch up to them. Killing them was incredibly difficult. Did you see any special characteristics of that person? Asked Ronglu. Yes. Ningchen nodded and described Bai Zhang's appearance in detail. It's him. Killing intent flashed through Ronglu's eyes. He couldn't be wrong. The number of 3 calamities experts in the 4 extreme realms could be counted on one hand. That person had to be Bai Zhang. There were 2 other people present. Ningchen added, describing Li Luo and Jian Bodi's appearances. Ronglu was also familiar with those 2. Now it would be even more disadvantageous for him to obtain the phoenix origin. I've already helped you unify the Holy Land's divided forces. Now it's time for you to fulfill your promise, said Ronglu to Luan Fengchen. Naturally, I'll do my best to help you, said Luan Fengchen. Ningchen then left. His mission here had already been completed. Just in case, he had to return ahead of time. Senior Golden Staff, let's go. Ningchen rushed over 50 miles from the Holy Land. He glanced at the elder who was waiting for him. The Golden Staff Imperial Tutor sighed emotionally. After leaving for so long, he was finally going to return. Half a day later, the 2 of them stepped into the chaotic streams of light at the peak of the 9 heavens and disappeared. Within desolate city Mubai, who had been quietly standing in front of the sword pool, left behind his sword. He didn't take it with him. Within the Grand Xia's Empyrean Academy, early in the morning, a white-robed figure walked over. He was the most unexpected guest. His sword intent was completely concealed, making him seem like the most ordinary person. Mubai had only one goal in coming here: to pay a visit to the world's strongest person, or perhaps the world's strongest sword. Not long ago, the primal chaos sword essence had been unsheathed. It had cut open the boundaries of space, allowing him to see a higher level of sword. It didn't seem like a sword of the mortal world. To be more precise, it was a sword that surpassed the limits of the human martial path. Mubai and his teacher met in a simple wooden hut. 1,000 years ago, the strongest swords met. They didn't fight, just the most ordinary Dao seeking and Dao discussion. Mu Qingxue calmly poured tea for them and left. He hadn't said a single word from start to finish. Many thanks for teaching, Qingxue, said Mu Qingxue. He had been obsessed with the sword his entire life, and he didn't care much about this niece his brother had entrusted to him. Now that his teacher was personally teaching her, he was relieved. I was just entrusted by someone else, said his teacher calmly. Mubai knew who his teacher was referring to and nodded. The matters of the younger generation could only be resolved by themselves. No one could replace them on their own path. After he finished speaking, Mubai's expression became serious. He said, I have a question. I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I still can't find an answer. I hope teacher can answer it. Please ask, replied his teacher. Teacher's sword that day seemed to contain something else. The limit of a human's martial path has already been proven to be the great circle of the 3 calamities. But teacher's sword clearly surpassed that limit in that instant, said Mubai. Why do you train in the sword? Asked his teacher instead of answering. Mubai thought for a moment, and then shook his head. There's no reason. This is already the most important part of my life. What I'm asking is, why did you first hold a sword? Asked his teacher again. Mubai frowned and calmed down. He carefully thought about it. It had been so long that he had almost forgotten when he had held a sword for the first time. After an unknown amount of time, Mubai put down his teacup and said with a trace of uncertainty, at that time, the situation between Desolate City and the Grand Xia was tense. My father didn't have much time left, and my brother's body wasn't suitable for martial arts. I held a sword so that Desolate City wouldn't be swallowed by the Grand Xia. His teacher nodded. Your sword has already reached the peak. There's no one who can guide you anymore. If there's anything lacking in your sword, perhaps it's that you lack the heart you had at the beginning. As for whether that's true or not, I can't be sure. You'll have to find out for yourself. Mubai was silent for a long time before he stood up and bowed. I've learned a lot. Many thanks. Mubai turned and left without the slightest hesitation. After Mubai left, Mu Qingxue entered the room. He tidied up the tea on the table and said, "Teacher, the horse has been fed. The ape is very anxious because it's about to undergo its tribulation." The horse was brought back by Ning Chen. The ape was also brought back by Ning Chen. They were raised in the academy. In the past, the teachers of the academy took care of them. Now Mu Qingxue was in charge of taking care of them. Mu Qingxue didn't ask too much about what the teacher told him to do. He just did it seriously. "Okay," the teacher replied softly. "When it's about to undergo its tribulation, just let it go." Mu Qingxue agreed, and quietly left the wooden house. He didn't want to disturb the teacher anymore. The first girl of the younger generation to enter the Khanate realm, and the fastest person in the world slowed down after entering the academy. She hid her sharpness and calmed down her heart. At that moment, the heavens and earth rumbled and trembled. In the academy, where the spatial boundary had been cut open, cracks appeared one after another. Boundless power kept colliding. There was actually an external force trying to open the passage between the two realms again. In the Ascension Valley, Ning Chen, who had just stepped out of the space turbulence and returned to the divine land, also felt the trembling of the heaven and earth. A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. If anyone else wanted to come, then come. At this moment, no matter how many people came, he wouldn't mind. 15 minutes later, the sound of collision stopped. The cracked space returned to normal. In front of a complete space barrier, even a great fulfillment 3 disasters couldn't break it. They had to give up temporarily. Chapter 364. In the homeland of West Buddha, above the many cultivators, a divine palace stood in the clouds. It was sacred and extraordinary, symbolizing the majesty of the strongest cultivator in the world, the great perfection of the 3 disasters, the existence of the ancient sages, the pinnacle of human martial arts, the absolute invincible supreme cultivator in the world. Below the divine palace, even the 3 disasters had to bow their heads and act carefully, not daring to disturb the heavens. Above the divine palace, a man in purple stood in the sky, looking at the spatial rift that was gradually closing in front of him, frowning slightly. Not long ago, he clearly felt the breath from the divine prefecture of the eastern region. Within 1,000 miles of the divine palace, countless cultivators trembled, looking at the man in purple, their eyes full of awe. The strongest cultivator in the world attacked the spatial barrier. Such terrible fluctuations had already made half of the homeland of West Buddha tremble. Purple Heavenly Palace, what are you doing? On the other side of the homeland of Western Buddha, in an ancient temple, a demonic aura filled the air. A cultivator of the same level spoke coldly. "Demon Buddha, are you interested in opening this spatial barrier and pulling back the lost region?" Purple Heavenly Palace responded above the divine palace. "Not interested." In the temple, the existence known as the Demon Buddha refused directly. "How long have you been stuck at the great perfection of the 3 disasters? Have you ever wondered why you have been unable to break through?" Purple Heavenly Palace asked calmly. "Heaven and earth are incomplete," the Demon Buddha said coldly. "Since you have guessed it, why not try? You must not have much time left. Now that the location of the divine prefecture of the eastern region has appeared, as long as you pull it back and restore this world, it is not impossible to enter the next realm," Purple Heavenly Palace said lightly. The Demon Buddha was unmoved. He snorted coldly and said, "Don't tell me you don't know what is there. I am not tired of living to the point of throwing my life away." Lord Pluto, a few days ago, the breath of the eastern region appeared briefly. You must have felt it. Without a doubt, there was no breath of Lord Pluto, Purple Heavenly Palace said. The Demon Buddha was silent and did not speak. For 30,000 years, there has been no movement from Lord Pluto. Presumably, the accident that occurred when he arrived has completely separated the 7 extinction heavens from the divine prefecture of the eastern region. Otherwise, do you think this mere spatial barrier can stop him? Purple Heavenly Palace continued. The demonic Buddha's heart wavered slightly, and he said, "Even so, with just you and me, It's impossible to pull them back to the Eastern Divine Prefecture. Zi Tiangong's eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice, "What if you and I take half a step forward? As long as you and I work together to open the spatial barrier, build the Four Corners Divine Tower, and send the Divine Continent's origin energy back to us, we'll use this opportunity to take half a step forward. At that time, we'll use the Four Corners Divine Tower's power to pull the Eastern region's Divine Continent back. Within 100 years, we'll definitely be able to see the realm beyond heaven." The demon Buddha was silent again. He did not have much time left. If he could not step out of the limits of the world, he would die in less than 100 years. Although the words of the Purple Heavenly Palace were crazy, there was indeed a certain possibility. It wasn't easy to build the four cardinal divine towers. The Eastern Region Divine Prefecture can't just sit by and do nothing. Moreover, the stronger the person's cultivation, the stronger the spatial restriction. With our abilities, it's already difficult for us to work together to open the spatial boundary. If we want to send a true expert over, it'll be very difficult. The demonic Buddha raised a question. Zi Tiangong thought for a moment and said, "Send Luo Xingqian over. Although his cultivation is not at the top, his strength is unquestionable." That traitor of the Zhao clan? The demonic Buddha frowned slightly. He also knew this person. Although he was extremely talented, he was arrogant and unruly. When he was still in the Zhao clan, his relationship with the Zhao clan's big shots was extremely strained. In the end, when he betrayed the Zhao clan, he was hunted down by the Zhao clan's big shots and countless experts. They fought all the way from the central region to the homeland of Western Buddha. In the end, the Purple Heavenly Palace appeared and saved Luo Xingqian's life. It was also because of this that Luo Xingqian owed the Purple Heavenly Palace a favor. Luo Xingqian's surname was not originally Luo. It was only after he betrayed the Zhao clan that he changed his name to Luo Xingqian. Because he had only cultivated for a short period of time, he had only just passed the second disaster. However, this person had one of the Zhao clan's 3 heavenly bows, the Star Scar Bow. His combat ability was no weaker than the Zhao clan's big shots from the 3rd disaster. Don't worry. Although this person is arrogant, he is someone who keeps his promises. When I saved him back then, I valued this point. With him in charge, the construction of the 4 cardinal divine tower will be completed very quickly, Zi Tiangong said. After saying this, Zi Tiangong paused for a moment and suggested, "For the sake of fairness, among the 4 people to build the 4 cardinal divine tower, you will choose 3, and I will choose 1. What do you think?" "Okay." The demonic Buddha thought for a moment and agreed. He asked, "When do we start?" 1 month later, Zi Tiangong said seriously. "Okay," the demonic Buddha replied. At the end of the negotiations, the Divine Palace and the temple regained their tranquility. In the homeland of West Buddha, no one knew what had happened in less than a quarter of an hour. Although the decisions between the strongest would inevitably affect the people of the world had never had the right to intervene. In the Divine Prefecture Ascension Valley, Ning Chun returned from the Four Extremities realm. Because the Golden Staff Imperial Advisor was injured, he returned to the Northern Meng Heavenly Lake to recuperate. The two of them temporarily parted ways and returned to their respective places. In the Jiming Marquis manor, after Ning Chun returned, he first asked Meng Xuanji about what had happened recently. When he learned that Ziyi's soul had been rescued, he heaved a sigh of relief. Although the one-person double transformation technique was exquisite, it had many shortcomings. The two bodies could not communicate with each other. Before the doppelganger returned to the original body, it was not much different from 2 people. "Has the Eternal Night Hierophant not come out yet?" Ning Chun asked. "No." Meng Xuanji shook her head. Ning Chun frowned slightly. It seemed that the Eternal Night Hierophant had suffered heavy injuries in the battle with the Nether King. If that was the case, they would not have enough manpower. In the Four Extremities realm, Li Luo and Jian Bodhi were working together to hunt him down. In addition, Rong Lu was also eyeing Feng Yuan covetously. Bai Jiang could not stay there for long. As long as there was a chance, he would rush back as soon as possible. The best way was to concentrate their forces in Ascension Valley. I'm going out. Time was of the essence. Ning Chen did not delay any longer, and immediately rushed towards the northwest of the Grand Xia. In Azure Frost Valley in the snow, Hongyi appeared. She released her aura, and waited for someone to come. Not long after, a young man in a black and white cloak walked over. Seeing the person in front of him, he frowned and said, "You need help again? Brother Mu, I'll have to trouble you," Ning Chen said. "How many favors do you owe me?" Mu Qianshang said calmly. "Heh." Ning Chen smiled helplessly and said, "We're friends, don't treat me like an outsider. What do you want to do this time?" Mu Qianshang did not talk much about this topic and asked. "Kill by Jiang," Ning Chen said seriously. Mu Qianshang's eyes flashed. The current leader of the Eternal Night cult? The price to pay for calling him a friend was not small. Who's going to fight? Mu Qianshang did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. For an expert of this level, even if several people join forces, there must be at least one person who could block his attack. Simply put, there must be someone who could withstand his attacks. Heh. Ning Chen smiled again and said, "Brother Mu's foundation is deep. Can you bear this heavy burden?" "Your joke is not funny at all," Mu Qianshang said indifferently. He was only at the fourth tribulation of the Xiantian realm. No matter how confident he was, it was impossible for him to face a peak second tribulation expert head-on. Ning Chen's expression turned serious and said, "I'm not joking. This time, Brother Mu may really have to take the lead." Mu Qianshang frowned and said, "Why? In terms of foundation, you should be the first choice." Ning Chen did not explain further. His figure flashed and instantly appeared in front of the former. He flipped his palm and condensed Yuan Qi before striking out. Mu Qianshang's pupil shrank, and he subconsciously flipped his palm to meet the attack. With a bang, his palm blocked the attack on his chest. Mu Qianshang's frown deepened. Such fast speed, such weak strength. What's going on? Mu Qianshang retracted his hand and asked. It's a long story. Ning Chen gave a simple explanation, and then said seriously, Bian Jiang was stabbed by me in the Four Extreme Realm, and is now seriously injured. With Jian Bodhi, Li Luo and the others joining forces to pursue him, even if he can escape, he will not have much battle strength left. Mu Qianshang thought for a moment, and did not say whether he agreed or not. He said indifferently, even so, if it's just the two of us, the chances of success are still very slim. With your character, you will definitely not only look for me alone. Who else is there? Mu Qingxue. Ning Chen replied. Mu Qianshang's lips curled slightly as he sneered. So it's her. Then you should think of a way to persuade her. If she takes action, I will go. If she does not agree, then Marquis can go on his own. I will not accompany you. I wish you good luck. We will meet again. With that, Mu Qianshang did not stay any longer and turned to leave. After 3 steps, an ink light flashed and he disappeared. Seeing the former leave, Ning Chen sighed softly. If Mu Qingxue was so easy to invite, he would not have come here first. A moment later, in Azure Frost Valley, the red clothes scattered and turned into a stream of light, rushing towards the academy. Heavenly Firmament Academy, after the aftermath of the spatial tremor, had regained its former peace. As for the cause of the spatial tremor, the teacher was not too concerned, and did not have the energy to care about it. 1,000 years of waiting had already caused this old man to be on the verge of death. Mu Qingxue was as usual quiet and quiet. Most of the time, he was thinking hard about something. Ever since he entered the academy, the coldness on his appearance had lessened greatly, and was replaced by a calmness like water. Ning Chen walked over with the mahogany box containing Dayan's azure sparrow sword. After greeting the teacher, he came to the west corner of the academy, where Mu Qingxue was feeding the horse. The little white horse recognized the master, who had abandoned it for many years. It was not angry, and moved its big face towards Ning Chen, trying to curry favor with him. However, Ning Chen pushed it far away in disdain. After so many years, this guy's bad habit had not changed. Miss Mu, according to our agreement, I've come to return the sword. Ning Chun took the mahogany box from his back and handed it over. Young Master Ning, you've been borrowing things for quite a long time. Mu Qingxue put down the wooden ladle filled with water and stretched out her hand to tidy up her long hair that was fluttering in the wind. She looked at Dayan's azure sparrow sword and calmly said, if she remembered correctly, Ning Chun had borrowed this sword 2 years ago to deal with a martial lord. He had said that he would return it after he finished using it. Who would have thought that he would wait for 2 years? Chapter 365. Ning Chun looked at the girl in front of him, who was less cold and more peaceful. His heart calmed down as well. It was fine as long as she was doing well. The sword returned to its owner. The green sparrow in the box chirped softly, as if it was saying goodbye to its master, who had accompanied it for 2 years. The knowing destiny state cultivator, who didn't understand the sword, also heard the green sparrow's farewell. Warmth flashed through his eyes. Senior was right. The sword had a spirit. He just needed to listen carefully. Mu Qingxue took the red wooden sword box and stroked the sword. The green sparrow stopped chirping and calmed down. The green sparrow withdrew its edge. The beautiful sword patterns on the sword showed thousands of years of wind and frost. The sword of the royal family would eventually return to the Xian royal family. This was the only symbol of the Xian Empire's existence. What's the matter? Mu Qingxue asked. Although she hadn't left the academy, she knew that the divine prefecture was facing a great calamity. The person in front of her had too many concerns. He couldn't stay out of it. Get the phoenix source, Ning Chun said seriously. What do you need me to do? Mu Qingxue put the red wooden sword box aside and continued with his work. Ning Chun went up to help carry the fodder for the little white horse and piled it together. He explained the current situation and future arrangements in detail. Are you confident? Mu Qingxue asked as he scooped a wooden ladle of water into the water tank in the shed. As long as there are no accidents, there will be no problem. The 7 absolute heavens must have great restrictions when using Bai Zhang's body to descend. What happened at Feng's Perch Mountain won't happen again. Otherwise, with the power that the Lord of Hell showed, it's almost impossible for us to escape, Ning Chun replied. The Lord of Hell's power was indeed unrivaled. Whether it was in the central spiritual region or Feng's Perch Mountain, he only showed the tip of the iceberg and made them suffer. Such an existence shouldn't appear in the human world. Wait a moment. I'll go say goodbye to the teacher, Mu Qingxue said softly after finishing his work. Mu Qingxue picked up the green sparrow sword box and walked towards the wooden house in the east. Ning Chun looked at the girl who left and waited quietly. The quiet and peaceful Mu Qingxue they first met was back. As for whether he could recover his memory or not, perhaps it wasn't important anymore. Let's go, Mu Qingxue said after a while. Yes, Ning Chun nodded. The two of them left. Their snow-white robes fluttered in the wind. Not a single speck of dust could be seen on them. Beside them, their red robes fluttered in the wind, as bright as blood. They never had the chance to stop and rest during their journey. In this chaotic world, the world was filled with misery and sorrow. Who could transcend this world? In Azure Frost Valley, the two of them arrived. Mu Qianshang appeared as promised. When he saw the white-clothed girl behind Ning Chun, he gave an incomprehensible smile. Love in this world was just like knowing destiny. He had won the world, but he could never win her. Let's go. You owe me another favor, said Mu Qianshang. If there's a chance, I'll return it. Ning Chun lightly laughed. Mu Qianshang did not say anything else. Ever since they had known each other, he had personally witnessed the caltrip flower growing on the blood-red ice lake back then. He knew that there was a kind of person who did not care for words. Are they friends? Perhaps, but the word friend was as light as a feather when spoken, but as heavy as Mount Tai when done. What a loss, what a loss. The black-clothed swordsman laughed at himself. Was it a loss? Perhaps. However, Mu Qianshang was very clear that even if he was given another chance, he would still make the same choice. At the manor of the Marquis of Jiming, all the people who should be invited had been invited. The two of them waited for a whole day. During the day, Ning Chun rushed to several cities to prepare something. It was not until sunset that he returned, covered in dust. The three of them did not stay for long. Taking advantage of the moonlight, they quickly rushed in the direction of Ascension Valley. They did not know when the enemy would arrive, so they could only wait patiently. Ningchen carefully mixed the sulfur, saltpeter and other medicinal stones he had brought, and buried them under Ascension Valley, preparing a gift for the return of Bian River. Will this thing be useful against the experts of the three disasters? Mu Qianshang looked at the small mountain of medicinal stones in front of the valley and frowned. He had heard that Emperor Xia had racked his brains to obtain this thing. However, the experts of the three disasters were not ordinary. These external things would not be of much use. In my hometown, people without martial arts can also use external objects to destroy a city. My knowledge is limited, so I can't do that. However, no matter if it's useful or not, the more preparations I make, the more likely I will succeed. Ningchen said calmly as he seriously did what he was doing. Mu Qingxue stepped forward and did as the former had said, helping to bury the gunpowder. Seeing this, Mu Qianshang sighed in his heart and also stepped forward to help. He was right. No matter what, it was better to be prepared than to do nothing. 2 days and 1 night. The three of them carefully buried the gunpowder in the entire Ascension Valley. The small mountain of medicinal stones in front of the valley also disappeared. After a long wait, the three of them took turns to adjust their breathing, maintaining their bodies in the best condition. This battle was not simple. No matter how serious Bianzhang's injuries were, he was still one of the three disasters. This was something that no one could change. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, it was close to a month. Just as the bright moon in the sky was full again, there was finally movement in Ascension Valley. The spatial passage was moving. No one knew who it was, but a powerful pressure had already appeared. He's here. A cold light flashed in Ningchen's eyes. He really came back alive. Behind him, Mu Qingxue and Mu Qianshang opened their eyes at the same time. They stood up and looked at the spatial passage in Ascension Valley with a serious expression. The broken death bow was bent and a bloody light gathered, forming a scarlet arrow. The cry of a phoenix could be faintly heard and flames curled around it, locking onto the exit. A moment later, a black figure walked out. At this moment, the scarlet arrow appeared and flew towards the former's heart. In the blink of an eye, the arrow was already in front of him. Bianzhang's expression sank, and he flipped his palm to block the arrow. With a bang, he shattered the arrow. The red arrow radiance scattered in all directions and sank into the ground with flames. In the next moment, a terrifying scene appeared. A huge explosion rang out, one after another. Amidst the loud rumbling, flames soared into the sky and instantly engulfed the entire Ascension Valley. Mu Qianshang's eyes flashed with shock. Only after personally witnessing this did he understand why the Xia Emperor had been so crazy about obtaining the formula for the gunpowder. Seriously, the real battle is coming. Ningchen clenched his right hand, and the Yama King's divine sword appeared in his hand. It was impossible for Bianzhang to die so easily. Otherwise, a three disasters expert wouldn't be so terrifying. Your crimes are unforgivable. As expected, within the sea of flames, the black aura reappeared. Bianzhang, who had used his full strength to block the explosion, was in an extremely sorry state. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Looking at the three people in front of him, killing intent appeared in his eyes. With a wave of his palm, a ferocious might shook the world. Surging Yama King energy crazily rushed towards the three of them. "Brother Mu, be careful," Ningchen warned. His figure flickered and he dodged the palm. His body turned, and his sword shot towards Bianzhang with extreme speed. At the same time, Mu Qingxue circulated the travel scroll. White light flashed and the shadow-bearing sword shot out. His sword moved and he followed. Mu Qianshang's speed wasn't as fast as the two of them, so it was difficult for him to dodge. With a wave of his hand, the snow sword appeared. An ink painting of mountains and rivers appeared, forming a sword domain of its own. The black mountain and white water shattered, and the palm's power weakened. Behind the mountains and rivers, Mu Qianshang's sword condensed ink to meet the remaining shockwaves. With a bang, the swordsman was forced back 3 steps. His mouth was dyed red. He had been injured in one move, but he had still managed to block Bianzhang's palm. The mountain and river's sword domain spread out, surrounding the four of them. The snow sword was used as a brush to paint a painting of heaven and earth. His extraordinary cultivation in the sword did not lose out to anyone present. The three swords trapped Bianzhang. One sword was fast, and the other was even faster. The red robes flashed, and the white robes appeared. Each of their moves was aimed at Bianzhang's vitals. The two fastest people in the world, one grasped the travel scroll, the other grasped the phoenix's origin. Their combination was fast to the peak, making it hard for others to resist. Bianzhang's palm's power was astonishing. The two of them could not avoid it in time. Mu Qianshang immediately stood up to block, resisting Bianzhang's divine power. The orderly combination of offense and defense ensured the fiercest offense. Using offense as defense, they suppressed Bianzhang's power to the greatest extent. Under the powerful attack, Bianzhang was in a difficult situation. When he attacked, his qi was not condensed enough, and his advantage in cultivation was gradually reduced to nothing. Mu Qingxue was not good at foundation, and Ningchen was unable to withstand Bianzhang's palm. Thus, in this battle, Mu Qianshang's task was very crucial. Once there was a mistake in their coordination, the suppressive situation would instantly be reversed. Forcefully blocking Bianzhang's attack, Mu Qianshang's right hand was injured. It was dripping with blood. On the painting of mountains and rivers, the bloody light was beautiful and bewitching. With a groan, the king of hell's divine sword pierced through his chest. Bianzhang held the sword with his right hand, and with a flip of his left palm, he slapped towards the person in front of him. The snow sword followed, and with a loud bang it blocked the palm. Blood splattered, and the ink-robed figure retreated a few steps. Just at this moment, the Chungying sword arrived. The sword pierced through Bianzhang's qi, forcefully destroying Bianzhang's cultivation. Amidst the intense pain, a violent black qi dispersed. Ningchen took the opportunity to withdraw his sword, avoiding the backlash around Bianzhang. Mu Qingxue also retreated. The moment the Chungying sword was pulled out, blood spurted out like a fountain. Mu Qianshang was about to step forward, but was stopped by Ningchen. "Wait a minute," Ningchen said solemnly. He had forced Bianzhang to the brink of death more than once. However, every time, there would be unexpected situations. The king of hell had poured too much power into this person. He did not want any accidents to happen at the last moment. Retrieving the phoenix origin is more important. Saying that, Ningchen's true essence rose. In the dazzling blood light, the phoenix origin responded to each other. It flew out from Bianzhang's body and landed in Jiming's hands. Retrieving the phoenix origin, the mission was finally completed. The life or death of the person in front of him was meaningless. His qi was destroyed. Even if he did not die, he would be crippled. A violent black qi dispersed from Bianzhang's body. The invincible Bianzhang had finally reached his end. Ningchen would never say nonsense about sparing his opponent's life. Breaking death bow, the blood light dazzled. A scarlet arrow pierced through the sky. After this arrow, Bianzhang's legend would be completely ended. Bianzhang truly rushed over. Seeing this scene, his expression changed greatly. However, it was too late for him to stop it. Just at this moment, a terrifying collision sound suddenly rang out. The space of the entire divine great land trembled violently. Chapter 366. The sudden change caused space to violently shake. The scarlet arrow was deflected, brushing past by Zhang's left shoulder, and causing blood to spurt out. Chu Li finally managed to catch up. The azure spear swept towards the three of them, carrying the heavily injured and dying Bai Jiang as they quickly left. Hong Yi and Bai Yi dodged the spear and immediately chased after them. Mu Qianshang blocked the attack with his sword, and also quickly chased after them. Boom! At this time, another earth-shattering collision rang out. The world shook and the terrifying tremors caused all the commoners in the divine prefecture to be alarmed. The constantly shaking space caused great trouble for the three of them. Chu Li did his best to stabilize himself, and constantly changed directions. Soon, he had disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Mu Qingxue stopped and looked at the constantly twisting space. Someone is attacking the barrier. Someone from the alien realm might be coming. Ningchen looked in the direction of the academy, a cold light flashing in his eyes. This Baizhang's life was really tough. Fortunately, the Phoenix Source had been recovered, and the main goal of this trip had been accomplished. The Eternal Night God sect had a way to repair their Dantian's Qi, but it would take a long time. Even if Baizhang was not dead, he would not be a threat for a while. Before that, they needed to find a way to completely stop the Nether King's descent. Let's return to the academy first, said Ningchen. The source of the spatial tremors came from the academy. It was even more violent than the last time. They did not know the strength of the alien realm's invaders. Whether they were friend or foe, they had to go and take a look. Then let's part here. I also need to return to the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion to heal, said Mu Qianshang calmly. This time, many thanks to Brother Mu, said Ningchen seriously. I've heard too many words of thanks. There's no need to say any more. Let's meet again, replied Mu Qianshang indifferently. He immediately changed directions and rushed towards the northwest. Let's go as well, Mu Qingxue said softly. He turned into a white light and rushed towards the academy. Ningchen nodded. Hong Yi scattered and quickly followed. In front of the wooden hut in the Empyrean Academy, the teacher walked out. Looking at the shaking space in front of him, there was no light in his turbid eyes. Unlike Ascension Valley, it was not easy to break through a complete spatial barrier. It seemed that at least 2 people at the peak of the 3 disasters from the other 4 regions had joined forces. In the distance, 2 streaks of light, one red and one white, were flying over at extreme speed. They were so fast that it was shocking. They disappeared in a flash, and not even their afterimages could be seen. The space trembled more and more violently, especially in the academy. Cracks appeared in the air, visible to the naked eye, and became clearer and clearer. In the next moment, with a bang, spatial fragments scattered in all directions. Violent air currents reverberated between the 2 realms. 4 figures walked out first, 3 men and 1 woman. They wore strange and simple clothes, and their powerful auras were faintly discernible. They were all powerhouses of the 3 disasters stage. After the 4 of them, a young man in purple and white clothes walked out. He had a handsome face, sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and it was obvious that he was arrogant. The person who had come was the supreme expert of the younger generation, who had betrayed the Zhao clan, Luo Xingchen. Eastern Region Divine Prefecture Ha. Luo Xingchen's eyes swept across the land in front of him and smiled faintly. Was this the Eastern Divine Prefecture that had been thrown out of the 5 regions back then? He hoped that it would not disappoint him too much. The first rays of the morning sun shone in the east. The arrival of the otherworldly experts would bring about changes to the Divine Prefecture. Under the first rays of the morning sun, the 2 people who had rushed over finally arrived. Seeing the 5 people who had walked out, they stopped. Trouble, Mu Qingxue said softly. Before the first wave was over, another wave arose. 5 powerhouses of the 3 disasters stage had appeared at once. In the future, there would be new waves in the Divine Prefecture. Let them come. It's already chaotic enough. 5 more won't make a difference, Ning Ning said coldly. At this point, it did not matter anymore. As long as they were still humans, there would always be a way to deal with them. The real calamity was still that Pluto. Gods were indeed absurd and cruel. The spatial cracks gradually closed. After a while, everything returned to normal. The shaking heaven and earth also calmed down. The headmaster turned around and returned to the wooden house, ignoring them. Luo Xingchen suddenly frowned. He looked at the 2 people in the east, and his expression turned cold. The bow of the Zhao clan. A purple and white light flashed. In the blink of an eye, a hand reached out and grabbed the red-robed man in front of him. However, after the red light flashed, a distance of 10 feet was opened up at an even faster speed. Guests of the alien realm, this is the first time we meet. Don't you think it's a bit impolite to attack without greeting us? Ningchen said calmly. There's no need to talk about manners when facing the people of the Zhao clan, Luo Xingchen said coldly. Ning Chun waved his hand, and the broken death bow flew into his hand. He said, "You mean this bow? I think you've misunderstood. I don't know about the Zhao clan. There has never been one in the Divine Prefecture." "Where did you get your bow?" Luo Xingqian asked coldly. "A friend left it behind," Ningchen said calmly. "Where is your friend?" Luo Xingqian narrowed his eyes and asked. "I sent him to hell," Ningchen said indifferently. Before he finished speaking, the only woman among the 4 people not far away also moved. Without any warning, she appeared in front of Mu Qingxue and reached out to grab him. Mu Qingxue retreated. His white robe flashed, and he avoided the woman's sudden attack. Yao Man frowned. So fast. Luo Xingqian also saw this, and a strange look flashed through his eyes. He turned around and looked at the red-robed man in front of him. He said, "Are all the Xiantian experts in the Divine Prefecture this fast?" One person could be considered an accident, but both of them were so fast. It was a bit puzzling. "We're considered slow. There's a city in the east. The people there aren't Xiantian experts, but they're still faster than us," Ningchen said seriously. "What a magical place." Luo Xingqian's eyes lit up. It seemed that this place wouldn't disappoint him. "Luo Xingqian, we still have a mission. Don't waste any more time." Yao Man looked at this unusual couple and reminded them. "You don't have the right to tell me what to do," Luo Xingqian said coldly. Yao Man snorted coldly in her heart. Anger surged, but she forced it down and didn't say anything else. "Guests, you've come from afar and shouldn't be familiar with the environment of the Divine Prefecture. Why don't you stay in my residence?" Ningchen said. Although he was talking to the 5 of them, his gaze was always on the man in purple and white. He could see that this person was the leader of this group. "I admire your courage." Luo Xingqian smiled indifferently and continued. "Since you've invited me, it would be impolite for me to refuse. Lead the way." Mu Qingxue couldn't guess what the person beside him was thinking, but he didn't say anything. In this world, the only person who had schemed against him had already passed away. Since he took the initiative to take the 5 of them away, he must have some plans. They walked a few steps, but Luo Xingqian stopped again. He looked at the woman in white behind him and said, "Miss, don't you want to come with us?" "I'm not familiar with him." "No need," Mu Qingxue said indifferently. "Heh, interesting." Luo Xingqian smiled lightly and left without saying anything else. In the Jiming Marquis residence, Meng Xuanji saw that Ning Chun had returned. Just as she was about to go up and ask him, her body suddenly trembled, and her eyes filled with disbelief. 5 of the 3 disasters. "Brother Ning, it seems that you're also someone who cares about women." Luo Xingqian smiled when he saw Meng Xuanji. That white-robed woman from before was already a rare beauty. He hadn't expected another one to appear here. "Brother Luo is teasing me. We're just friends," replied Ningchen. The 5 of them entered the hall. Yao Man didn't dare to be careless in this unfamiliar place. She spread out her spiritual sense to investigate the entire Marquis estate. Her expression changed. There was actually an expert on the level of the 3 disasters here. "Why don't you ask that friend of yours to come out?" Luo Xingqian could naturally sense the pressure coming from within the Marquis estate. "Brother Luo, please forgive me. That senior was injured a few days ago and is currently recuperating. It's not convenient for him to come out," replied Ningchen. "Oh, even such an expert was injured?" Luo Xingqian was surprised. "I'm ashamed to say this, but I also participated in that battle. I lost miserably. I was already lucky to be able to escape with my life," sighed Ningchen. "The peak of the 3 disasters?" Luo Xingqian's eyes flashed. "It's not easy to judge. Forget it. Let's not talk about such disappointing matters. Brother Luo, did you and your 4 friends come from the homeland of West Buddha?" Ningchen changed the topic. "How do you know the homeland of West Buddha?" Yao Man frowned and interjected. "A few days ago, an expert called Rong Lu crossed the border and came here. I was lucky enough to learn of it." Ningchen responded to the former's question. For the time being, he didn't mention the Bodhi sword. After he finished speaking, he quietly observed their reactions. Yao Man and the white-robed man beside her clearly had a trace of disgust on their faces. As for the other two youths, they revealed a trace of interest in their eyes. As for Luo Xingqian, he still didn't have any reaction. He clearly didn't care. In just a short moment, their positions were clear. Ningchen saw this and remembered it in his heart. Marquis. Ruoxi walked over and respectfully bowed. Serve tea to the guests, said Ningchen. Yes, Ruoxi softly replied. She immediately stepped forward and served tea to everyone present. Seeing the appearance of another beautiful woman, Yao Man's impression of the purple-robed young man in front of her became even worse. She snorted coldly in her heart. Sure enough, men are all the same. After a cup of tea's worth of conversation, the people present weren't ordinary people. It was impossible for them to really reveal anything. After a cup of tea's worth of conversation, Ningchen called the old housekeeper to lead the 5 people to the east wing for a temporary rest. These people, we don't know if they are enemies or friends, yet you dare to bring them to the Marquis mansion. Should I say you have courage, or something wrong with your head? After the 5 people left, Meng Xuanji, who hadn't spoken until now, finally couldn't help but speak up. Oh, Ningchen chuckled and glanced at Ruoxi. Ruoxi, change a cup of tea. And Ruoxi changed the tea and served a new one. She immediately stood quietly to the side. Don't worry, no matter what their purpose is, they must first weigh the strength of the various forces in the divine land. Before that, they won't act easily. It just so happens that the sect leader is here. Such a good resource can't be wasted. Ningchen took a sip of tea and said in a cold tone, of course, it's best if they are friends. If they are enemies, then today's tea will be their farewell. Chapter 367. In the east wing of the Marquis mansion, for people gathered, Han Yi from the Divine Palace, Yao Man from the Demonic Temple, Jie Feng, and Jie Yan from the Demonic Temple. The 4 of the 3 disasters were discussing the construction of the 4 cardinal towers. The 4 of them had a tacit understanding and did not inform Luo Xingqian. Everyone knew that this person was a traitor of the Zhao clan. His character was unpredictable, and he was not an easy person to work with. The Purple Heavenly Palace and the Demonic Buddha had already explained that there was no need to discuss with Luo Xingqian about the construction of the Divine Pagoda. The 4 of them could decide on their own. This Marquis Jiming is not simple. We have to be careful, Yao Man said seriously. Yi Shuihan smiled faintly and said calmly, compared to the Jiming Marquis, I'm more curious about why the expert of the 3rd disaster was injured. This person's words can't be completely trusted. Yao Man's eyes flashed with disgust. Oh, I'm more interested in this Marquis Jiming. Jie Feng, who had been silent all this time, said with a chuckle. I agree, Calamity Flame interrupted. Let's not talk about this person for now. We can't delay the construction of the 4 directions Divine Towers. According to the agreement, Divine Palace will be responsible for the Northern Frost Tower, while the 3 of us will be responsible for the Wind, Fire, and Lightning Towers. Right now, the most important thing is to choose a place to build it, said Yao Man seriously. There's no rush. We're still not familiar with the situation in the Eastern Divine Prefecture. We can't act rashly. Let's wait for a while, said Yi Shuihan. Brother Yi is right. The waters of the Divine Prefecture are much deeper than we thought. This mission won't be easy, agreed Jie Feng. Don't you think you're worrying too much? Along the way, aside from the 3rd calamity expert, the other people's cultivation bases aren't even worth mentioning. Back then, the Eastern region's Divine Prefecture was forced out of the 5 regions, and the world is even more damaged. Let alone the 3 calamities, even Xiantian experts are hard to come by, said Yao Man with a frown. Calamity Fire shook his head and said, not necessarily. The truth may not be as simple as it seems. Rong Lu is also here. Given the character of the king of the Rong tribe, how could he behave himself? When Jiming Marquis mentioned Rong Lu, his expression did not change. Obviously, the king of the Rong tribe has restrained himself a lot after coming to the divine land. In other words, he hasn't done anything outrageous. Hearing the name Rong Lu again, Yao Man could not hide the disgust on her face. She did not suspect that the Marquis of Jiming was lying. Rong Lu had disappeared from the homeland of West Buddha for 100 years. She did not expect him to come here. This person might become a problem. Displeasure also flashed in Yi Shuihan's eyes. The relationship between the Divine Palace and the king of the Rong tribe was quite ordinary. There had been a lot of friction between them 100 years ago. Now that they met again in the Divine Prefecture of the Eastern region, it was really a small world. Tribulation Wind and Tribulation Fire drank their tea quietly and did not interrupt. The Demon Temple and the Rong Tower did not have anything to do with each other, so they did not comment. When Yao Man saw their reactions, she had no choice but to suppress her emotions and not express her opinion. Yi Shuihan snorted coldly in his heart. Although the Divine Palace and the Demon Temple were allies, they were not of the same mind. Just as the four of them were conversing, Red Spectre walked over from another guest room in the East Wing and knocked on the door. "Please enter," said Luo Xingchen. Ningchen pushed open the door and entered. When he saw the young man sitting at the table, he smiled and said, "Brother Luo, how was your rest?" "I was just about to rest when you came," Luo Xingchen said calmly. "Oh, then I'm sorry for disturbing you." Even so, Ningchen still walked in, closed the door, and sat across the table unceremoniously. "Brother Ning, what do you want to know?" "You can ask directly," Luo Xingchen said directly. Brother Luo is indeed straightforward. I won't beat around the bush. May I ask if Brother Luo and the other four friends have anything important to do in the Divine Prefecture? If there is anything you need help with, I will do my best to help," Ningchen said sincerely. "Building the pagoda." Luo Xingchen did not hide and said lightly, "I don't know what the square tower is used for. My task is to ensure that the square tower is built smoothly. If you want to know the details, you can ask the four people. Of course, the premise is that they are willing to tell you." He owed the Violet Heavenly Palace a favor. This time, he came to the Divine Prefecture to repay the favor. He was not interested in anything else. Ningchen narrowed his eyes slightly. The square tower was an unfamiliar name. However, the relationship between the five people, as he had guessed, was not as harmonious as it seemed. The headmaster had also said that a complete space barrier required at least 2 cultivators, at the great attainment of 3 disasters, to work together, and pay a high price to open it. It seemed that the 5 people were likely to come from different forces. There was still hostility between fellow disciples. It was even more difficult for allies to work together. "I have answered your question. Now it's time for you to answer mine," Luo Xingchen said coldly. "Brother Luo, please speak," Ningchen replied. "Where did you get your bow?" Luo Xingchen's expression was cold. Just now the 4 people were there, so he did not ask much. It was incredible that the eastern region also had a bow from the Zhao family. It happened many years ago. Ning Chun recounted the process of how he got the bow from the disabled man. He could see that the person in front of him hated the Zhao family deeply. There was no harm in telling him this. "Good job," Luo Xingchen sneered after hearing the story. "Brother Luo, you seem to hate the Zhao family very much. However, why do you have a bow from the Zhao family?" Ningchen glanced at a quaint longbow placed not far away and asked. "Brother Ning, I'm a bit tired," said Luo Xingchen indifferently. "Ah, then Brother Luo should rest first. I'll take my leave." Ningchen smiled and walked out. "I admire you. I hope we won't be enemies," said Luo Xingchen behind him. "Of course not." Ningchen didn't linger. He opened the door and walked out. Within the room, Luo Xingchen frowned slightly. For some reason, he felt that this person's condition was a bit strange. He didn't seem like a real person, but more like a shadow. One figure after another flew out of Ascension Valley. Seeing the ravaged valley, the 2 people at the front were startled. "It seems we came too late," said Rong Lu. Luan Fengchen's eyes were constantly shining. Without a doubt, this was Ning Chen's doing. He just didn't know what the result would be. Bai Zhang's cultivation base is extremely high. Even if he's heavily injured, he won't be easy to deal with, said Luan Fengchen. Rong Lu nodded. That was correct. A peak expert of the second calamity truly wouldn't die so easily. A moment later, the 2 of them led several experts from the Holy Lands to the west. Not long after they left, two more figures appeared. It was Li Luo and Jian Bodi. Did you succeed? Li Luo narrowed his eyes as he looked at the ravaged Ascension Valley. This was already their best chance. Hopefully, there wouldn't be any more accidents. The Nether King's tribulation wasn't child's play. The two of them didn't delay, and immediately rushed to the Marquis' mansion. The sun set in the west and the day passed. Night fell, and the blood-red moon appeared in the east. It was so dazzling. In the eastern courtyard of the Marquis' mansion, Yao Man, Yishui Han, and the others suddenly felt uneasy. They pushed open the door and saw the blood-red moon in the sky. Their expressions immediately changed. What was going on? Luo Xingqian also walked out of his room. Looking to the east, light pulsed in his eyes. What terrifying energy. 5 guests. The Marquis' mansion doesn't have anything to entertain you with. We've specially prepared some green fruits for you to quench your thirst. Ningchen walked over at the right time. Behind him, Ruoshi carried 5 plates of green fruits and placed them on a stone table in the courtyard. Marquis, may I ask what's going on? Jiefeng asked. I'm not too sure. It's been like this since half a year ago. It really scared a lot of people and caused a lot of trouble for the Marquis' mansion. But we're used to it now. Ningchen replied. Humph, let's not beat around the bush. As a Xiantian master, how can you not feel this terrifying energy? Hiding the truth won't do you any good. Yao Man's expression was cold. Her words were not without threat. Ningchen didn't care and smiled. Miss Yao misunderstood. I really don't know. I only heard a few words from the seniors in the mansion. This matter seems to be related to some Nether King. You also know that the longer a person lives, the more they like to pretend to be unfathomable. They never speak a complete sentence. I don't believe there is a Nether King in this world. This kind of celestial phenomenon will pass in a few days. Nether King, 7 extinction heavens. Hearing the 2 words Nether King, the 5 people present, except for Luo Xingqian, all trembled. It really was him. The 4 of them came from the Divine Palace and the Demon Temple. They knew some things that ordinary inheritances didn't know. If there was anything a peak 3 disasters needed to be afraid of, it would undoubtedly be this terrifying existence. Outside the Imperial City, Jian Bodi and Li Luo returned. As soon as they entered the Imperial City, they sensed several faint auras from the Marquis' mansion. At the same time, the 5 people in the Marquis' mansion also sensed the auras of 2 of the 3 disasters in the distance. Their expressions changed once more. Jian Bodi and Li Luo frowned. They didn't know what was going on, so they temporarily hid their auras and didn't rush back. Not long after, Luan Fengqian and Ronglu's group also appeared in the Imperial City. They originally wanted to take the phoenix blood left behind by the Marquis after his death. However, after sensing the auras in the Marquis' mansion, they immediately stopped. How is this possible? Ronglu's expression changed. When did the Marquis' mansion have so many 3 disasters? Within the Marquis' mansion, Yishui Han, Yao Man, and the others also had ugly expressions. They originally thought that there weren't many 3 disasters in the Divine Continent. They hadn't expected 4 to appear in just one day. And the weakest was at the peak of the 2nd disaster. Everyone's here. Ningchen sneered inside. The timing was perfect. Senior Ronglu, since you've come, why don't you come and sit with us? Hongyi appeared in the air, looking at the figures not far away. It's you. You didn't die, said Ronglu icily. Thanks to the heavens, I was lucky enough to survive. Brother Fengqian, that saber of yours was truly vicious. My 70% success physique was crippled just like that. Tell me, how should I repay you? Asked Ningchen. You don't need to repay me. This time, I'll send you on your way. Luan Fengqian waved his fan, and it transformed into a rainbow saber that shone with dazzling light. Ronglu, long time no see. How have you been? Yishui Han stepped into the air, looking at the blood-red robed man in front of him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. As it's the primary source of revenue, that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.